What's up, chat? Welcome back to stream. It is Tuesday. We're getting a little bit tactical today. For whatever reason, my audio device is like funny, and I don't mute it as early as or unmute it as early as I wanted. I have a new microphone as of last week, and it's a little bit less convenient than the previous ones we've had. I was sitting down today because I'm tired, and that's what's going on. But we do have some new spoilers over here on Warhammer Community for 11th edition Warhammer 40k. Talking about Space Marines today, chat. What a time to be alive. Now, obviously, there's a bunch of cool stuff that we can sort of glean from these new spoiler articles about mechanics in the new edition, and that's what we're going to be hopping onto in this video, is trying to take a peek at exactly what we're looking at. I think we're going to get a peek at exactly how some of the new detachments will be structured. We're going to be looking at some new upgrade mechanics. We're going to be looking at some keywords. One thing that I very much like about the rules that we are seeing being previewed is the fact that they are all very straightforwardly codified. There's a lot of bolded, defined game terms, which I love. Hopefully we don't have this situation where there's a bunch of stupid overlapping, like, self-referential definitions inside of a rules commentary somewhere that don't make any sense, which is obviously what we've had previously. And hopefully it looks pretty cool. So yeah, anyway, chat, let's hop in and talk about it. If my mouse would work. Here we go. Boom. Here we go. So we start by talking about the Fulgurous Task Force, which gives you turn 1 deep strike on all your land speeders, which is interesting. It seems like one thing that they're doing quite a bit here, and we sort of saw this towards the end of 11th edition, is that they are pushing really heavily into these styles of detachments that give you a keyword, and then they pay off that keyword with something. So obviously, in this case, you gain the speeder keyword on your storm speeders and your land speeders, and you can rapid ingress them turn 1. Now, it feels to me like this is a good example of what is going to be a lower points value detachment. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, maybe I'll get a detachment, that's my whatever sort of detachment that I'm looking at will be a 1-point detachment. I imagine that this is probably what you would expect to see from a lower points detachment, because it affects only very specific units. And it seems like all of the effects of those detachments, this is what I would expect to see, all of the effects in those detachments will affect those specific units. I would not expect to see a more broadly applicable detachment that has effects that affect other things. That will probably be a more expensive detachment than something like this, which is like literally only 4 data sheets get the effect. I don't know if I necessarily do this, but I didn't really look at the model previews because I was live streaming over the weekend. But the land speeder, the new land speeder model, has different weapon options, which is cool. So there's a flamer version and an assault cannon version. I'm very interested to see how big it is compared to OG land speeders, because one thing I would love to be able to do is use OG land speeders as the new one. I imagine that this is quite a bit bigger, but I don't know that for sure. And if it is a base measurer, or it has a base on it, I mean, we'll see how that ends up working. If it ends up being a base measurer, and we don't use the terrible rule that we have currently, where if you have a base, then you also use your hull, even if your base is like normal size. Right? Like if for some reason a storm speeder uses your hull measurement because it's silly. I don't know. We'll see. It would be cool if there was a way to reutilize those old models. That would be neat. There is an upgrade. Bellicose Weapon Spirits. This is obviously the new effects that you can pay to upgrade. I believe it's a number of units. I think you could get up to 2 for each upgrade that are non-characters. In this case, it gives your speeder units rerolls on the amount of damage and number of attacks that you make, which is pretty cool. So especially given the fact that we do have like a heavy, what is probably a heavy twin linked heavy flamer, or a pyre blaster, I guess, or whatever it is. In addition to a random damage weapon on the top there, that's pretty helpful. You can also do it on things like thunder strikes, storm speeder thunder strikes, or hammer strikes that have a lot, like several D6 damage weapons between the melted destroyers and the missile launchers. All of that's going to be sweet. You give them a reactive move for a commander point. Interestingly, so there has been a lot of stratagems, like core stratagems, that have changed to be triggered at the end of a phase. So things like Overwatch and I believe Heroic Intervention, if I have to remember, if I remember correctly, have been spoiled in the unboxing video, and they trigger end of phase. This does not do that, so it doesn't seem like reactive moves are changing, which I think is good. The ability to hold these reactive effects until your opponent has done all their movements and then use them proactively there is wild. But the interesting thing is that it is an 8-inch trigger rather than a 9-inch trigger. Given the fact that they have redefined deep striking as a move, it is called an ingress move. It would, I guess, I would be interested to see if there are any sort of reserve effects that could trigger this. It does seem like that might be the case within 8 inches. I don't know. I think that the Deep Strike has been shrunk down, right? You can Deep Strike 8 inches away rather than 9. However, like 6-inch Deep Strikes, things like that, might be able to trigger reactive effects in this new edition, which would be really crazy, actually. That would be wild. That dramatically improved the lot of reactive moves, to be perfectly honest. We'll see. It's a D3 plus 3 reactive move, which seems pretty good. They also talked about the upgraded Librarius Conclave, which we did talk about over the weekend, right? There was a undefeated Librarius Conclave. A little bit of spice with that one, though. As people were letting me know in the comment section, they were like, that guy probably cheated, actually. I don't know that. I don't know if that's the case, but that would suck if it is true. It would be unfortunate that we had a cool Space Marine detachment with a cool army doing well, and unfortunately it was like a guy who was a scumbag. But well, I don't know. That's just what the comment section said, so we will see how it goes. It looks like, for the most part, it is the same as that we have currently. At the start of the battle round, you choose a Psychic Discipline. Astartes Psyker units have either +2 movement, reroll hit, and wound of 1. Range attacks target an enemy unit within 12 and +1 AP. Range attacks targeting them have -1 strength. Ignore our modifiers to weapon skill, ballistic skill, and hit rolls. I think those are unchanged. I guess what we can do, chat, is verify ourselves. But I don't believe that there is a difference there. Let's look.
Adriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. I know it was covered yesterday, but are you also going to cover the new Overwatch and Ork preview?
I don't know about the Overwatch stuff, but I will. We'll talk about Orks if we have time today. I don't think, like, this article is very long, so it depends entirely on how much time we end up spending, and then we can talk about Orks at some other point. But we'll see. If we run through this and it's like a bunch of stuff that is basically for like existent stuff, we can talk about Orks at the end for sure. But it might be cool to do it in its own video, make it its own thing. Anyway, so yeah, the current Librarius Conclave, I think, is usually identical. +2 movement, +1 AP, reroll hits and wounds of 1. Yeah. Ignore weapon skill, ballistic skill characteristics, and hit roll modifiers. Yeah, these are all identical. So, no changes here, I guess. Temporal Corridor is new. Oh, that's an enhancement.
Drew
Lytle, thank you for the super chat.
281 donated $5 through Super Chat. If the points allow it, I want to build a Librarius Conclave plus Headhunter combo so I can run Psychic units and tanks both beefed up.
I sincerely doubt that will be allowed, but we'll see. I think that I want to couch people that I think that the detachments that are playable with other detachments are going to be so narrow in focus, right? Because this affects Psyker units. It's just like it works currently, where you have the potential to give many units Psyker, right? So this can affect like a vast majority of your army. Whereas this detachment is probably an example of a cheaper detachment because it affects literally only 4 datasheets. This is what I would expect to see from a lower than 3-point detachment. I would not expect to see stuff like this or, stuff like Headhunter, which can affect all your vehicles potentially with like a huge buff. I would not necessarily expect to see those be fewer than 2 detachment points. So, I don't want people to get their hopes up of being like, oh, like this, like my pet detachment, it only affects like some weapon, some unit keywords, but it has a bunch of stratagems and enhancements that can affect like anything. Assimilation Swarm only affects the harvester keywords, so clearly it should be a 1-point detachment. No. I think what you should expect out of 1-point detachment is one that literally only affects like Ripper swarms and has no other utility outside that. So I would not get my hopes up for detachments that like affect every vehicle in your army with like a powerful passive buff being a cheap detachment. That's what I have to say about that. It could very well happen, but I don't know if I would necessarily be like get like super into it. All right. Temporal Corridor, I think, is new. It's an enhancement. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, you can place your into strategic reserve. It gains deep strike if you have the telekinesis discipline. That's fucking crazy. So like this Sternguard veteran combo that we're playing currently, although I don't know if we can dual attach anything with Psychers. I don't think we can. Like dual attach a Psyker unit that can have an enhancement with, for example, something that gets Fusillade. Although who even knows if Fusillade is in this new version anyway, so who has any idea? But in any case, the ability to up down Space Marine units is kind of awesome. That's rare in the army. And if we can find ways to put Psychers into stuff like Eradicator squads, it could be crazy, especially since you deep strike 8 inches away instead of 9 now. So if we can find like Melta teams or whatever that can jump in on people, like this might go insane. That feels very Thousand Suns pill chat, which I guess makes a lot of sense for the Psyker detachment. We'll see. Does dual attachment become leader and support in the new edition? Yeah, but I think they mentioned that there's like gonna be there's a bunch of writers on like what is leader and support characters. That's just like basically the USR for dual attaching characters, which they don't have currently, which is obviously like weird. Which creates all sorts of weird issues with, as we're experiencing right now with Astra Militarum, what happens when you dual attach 2 units that have embedded characters in them? Who fucking knows? So they're USRing it, I think. But I do believe that there will be some riders on who can support what, but I don't know that for sure. That was the indication that they talked about. Put it on Phobos Librarian, have them lead Eliminators. I mean, that could be cool. I do like the Phobos Libby Eliminator combo. But I think like the big thing is that what you want it to do likely is to put it on like big. I mean, Sternguard Veterans is like the big one, right? Sternguard Veterans are just like they really do tons of damage within 12, targeting your Oath target. Whereas otherwise it's not quite as not quite as much. The Subversion Assets Detachment focuses on scout squads and Phobos armored units. In your shooting phase, you can select a visible enemy unit within 12 inches of any Phobos or scout squad. Phobos is a pretty broad category too. This is Phobos and scout squad units, so it likely works on your combi lieutenants and your Phobos LTs, which is kind of spooky. The unit can select an enemy visible unit within 12 inches. The enemy unit is detected. While the unit is detected, it has +3 inches of detection range. What does that mean, chat? Do they have a footnote here? I know they love adding footnotes these days. No. Is it? There's not a mechanic that I'm missing here. Right? I don't know what detection range is. Select one visible enemy unit. The enemy unit is detected. It has +3 inches of detection range. Is that the hidden mechanic, chat? It must be that you can shoot them from 18 rather than 15. So even if your opponent is hiding, you can fire at them from farther away, I would imagine. It's very niche. Okay. Well, fair enough. I assume that that's going to be how it works. But I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Strike from the Shadows is a stratagem. This is what they call currently the Vanguard task force or Vanguard Spearhead or whatever it's called. Stratagem to get +1 ballistic skill and ignore +1 AP shooting outside 12 inches. So it seems like maybe that detachment's going the way of the dodo, or at least that stratagem is, because this is stealing its name. Not that they haven't released stratagems with identical names and different effects in the past, but it does feel like that's going to be the case. A Phobos or Scout Squad could shoot. You can pay as command points to remain hidden while shooting, which is, I guess, fine. I don't know, like, if you're that excited typically about your Phobos and Scout Squad shooting, unless you have an effect like an Incursor Squad, potentially, where you can drop a +1 to hit on people without revealing your Incursors. That actually could be legitimately good. I guess it's like Eliminators and stuff, but generally speaking, Phobos units aren't doing that much damage, so we'll see. You can make one of your characters more covert and clandestine with Shroud Field for Lone Operative and Stealth. Yeah, I think this is basically just like stealing a bunch of mechanics from Vanguard. I keep calling it Vanguard Onslaught because I'm Tyranid pilled. Vanguard Spearhead. Trying to move more Phobos, indeed. But this is, yeah, for sure what I would expect from a 1-point detachment, right, chat? Like, it's a bunch of extra stuff that that basically like locks in on your Phobos things specifically. And so, like, you could combine this with the speeder detachment or something like that, and then you can like buff your speeders with your Phobos guys. That's kind of the idea, I think. They talk about the lone operative mechanic.
Edriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. Trevi is now Dora the Explorer. What does detection mean, chat? Can you spell heresy?
Can you tell me what detection range means? Let's look in our backpack for our stratagems deck. Come here, backpack. Can you spell after and immediately after? Which one comes first? Fucking great. That's my new brand. So they talk about lone operative and stealth. So stealth now, ooh, this is a big change. RIP stealth. If every model unit in your unit has this ability, each time a range attack targets a unit, the unit has the benefit of cover. So stealth no longer stacks with cover, chat. That is actually huge. I'm going to turn my microphone down a little bit. It seems like it's a little loud. Let me know if that sounds better. Huge change to the stealth mechanic. That also means that I'm interested to see what like Smokescreen does nowadays as well. Lone operative. Makes the unit invisible to enemy models outside 12 inches. And cannot be targeted by indirect fire weapons that are outside 12 inches either. I like that. That makes a lot more sense than the current incarnation of Lone Operative, which is just like a ranged targeting restriction, which requires 100 riders to make work. This also means that other like visibility effects, like targeting, for example, are not going to be able to observe onto lone operatives because you can't see them if you're outside 12 inches. It's like choose a visible unit and you are not visible. I love this change. That's so much cleaner than what we have right now as well. Stealth is pretty wild. We do need, I think, to see some changes to how exactly terrain provides cover, because I guess I'm unclear, having only looked at the preview article, how infantry units benefit from cover if they are partially obscured by terrain features or they are partially within terrain features. I know vehicles and monsters will get it if they are physically obscured by the terrain feature, like if they're behind the vertical elements of it. Whereas an infantry unit, I don't necessarily know. So it could be that stealth is actually pretty powerful if it's more difficult to benefit from cover on multi-model infantry units. And stealth just means that you don't have to worry about your proximity to cover to get the benefit. Whereas a normal unit is actually kind of has a tough time gaining cover from things. But this is a massive reduction in the power of the mechanic, it seems, in general. Which honestly, as someone who enjoys attacking my opponent and having their models be removed, I'm into it. Let's stop stacking 100 buffs onto a unit to make them very difficult to kill. Which is cool. The attached comment has me wondering if they're doing less large units with Loan Op. No, the attached rider is actually inside the current incarnation of Lone Operative as well. If I remember correctly. Can actually just look at the core rules here while we're here. But there is basically a thing that says unless you're part of an attached unit inside the current version of Lone Op, just so that there's no like weird thing that happens when you attach Lone Op into something. Neat. I'm into it, chat. Now, I guess the interesting question is whether or not detection range affects Lone Operative. And I sort of thought that they would marry the hidden and Lone Operative mechanics, but it doesn't seem like they're doing that. Like hidden, reduces your detection range or whatever.
At Justin87 donated $2 through Super Chat. Phobos bolters need to upgrade for SFTS to be good.
I agree with that, chat for sure. I don't think like this also affects other Phobos things. So like it affects your eliminator squads. It affects your like, as we talked about, any units that can apply buffs to people. So stuff like incursor squads, it affects them too. Scout squads can shoot missile launchers. Maybe that's helpful. Probably not. But I think that there are other instances where you're going to use this where it's not necessarily just shooting bolters. But I don't disagree. I was always kind of wondering, like, if they would just go really hard into a detachment that's like, here's the Phobos detachment. Phobos units gain +1 to wound every time they make an attack, or something like that, where it's like, can we find a way to make mass, like, strength 4 AP01 damage good? And the answer is that I think you definitely can. The question is whether or not you want to do it. And it's also like, it depends on how much you want what you want the units to be doing as well. So, I know for a lot of the kind of times they want to orient these Phobos units around supporting the rest of the army rather than dealing damage themselves. They want to try to avoid essentially what happened in 8th edition for a while, where Phobos units were like your frontline melee combatants because they were just faster than everything else. And if you stacked movement enhancers on them, you could make them very quick. But what's interesting to me is that this indicates that hidden and detection range, which it sounds like they have, they are angling towards being, like, detection range being the range at which you can target hidden units. It's interesting that seems divorced from Lone Operative, because I foresee that being sort of problematic. Where instead of Lone Operative being a superior version of hidden, where you can be hidden, like, even if you're attacking enemies, and you have a shorter detection range, the fact that this is not, like, sort of worded as a detection range effect means that there's no overlapping like synergy, or there's no overlapping like counterplay here. It's like, it's not like Phobos units have an easier time targeting Lone Operatives. It's that they interact with a wholly different but similar mechanic, which I don't really love, but it might maybe that's a balance thing. Who knows? All right, let's move on. We're talking about Black Templars. 3 new detachments for Black Templars, including one that enables you to field an even more powerful Emperor's Champion. The detachment rule for Anointed Champion is you get a floating reroll hit and wound for each Emperor's Champion unit. Or I guess the one, because it's an epic hero, right? Or I assume it will be. We'll see. Enhancements selected from this detachment do not count towards the total number of enhancements in your army.
At Colin Walker 6804 donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Having seen what they did to Tactical Brigade, I'm worried for custodies. Bet Lions and Solar Spearhead's gonna become trash.
That is potential. I haven't looked at the Tactical Brigade stuff yet. I know it's like, it changed to be like much more focused, but I think what I would expect to see is that stuff like, especially Talons of the Emperor, and potentially Solar Spearhead become like very focused 1-point detachments, right? And then so the idea is that you can slot them in with another detachment. And so I think it's going to be a reframing rather than like just a transposition. You know, I think like a lot of the stuff we're talking about right now, you basically like we've seen essentially Vanguard Spearhead being reworked in a big way to focus more on Phobos Marines, but with the intention being that you take it alongside other detachment abilities. So like it will be trash because it likely, like those effects likely won't affect your whole army, right? Lines of the Emperor might just be the Alaris Terminator detachment and gives you like bonuses for specifically Alaris Terminators. However, the idea is that you can slot it in with a second detachment that buffs Wardens or whatever. And so like the combination of those two is what's going to actually construct your army abilities. And so it's going to have a lot more, there's a lot more modality to it, right? So it's like the lower cost detachments will be worse, but they'll be worse because you stack more mechanics together. Inky's been like really aggro today. You want to come up? You want to come up and say hi to chat? I think she just wants to take a nap, which I kind of do as well, Inky. You know what? Based. That's based. Come on up. No, she doesn't want to come up right now. That's okay. Talking about this anointed champion. So this is a very clear example of a 1-point detachment. It affects literally only one model in your army. But you get extra enhancements, which is neat. So you can probably enhance your... So it costs you 1 detachment point, and it'll cost you some number of points, but you get a sick Emperor's Champion in addition to whatever your other detachments do, which is kind of cool. I like that. Enhancements. At the start of the first battle round, select up to 3 of the following abilities. This model has those abilities until the end of the battle. Once per battle... per army. Oh, I love these. They have like little keywords for like how often you can use them. Fuck yeah, that's sick. In the fight phase, when the character is selected to fight, if you are engaged with an enemy character unit, you can use the ability, you gain devastating wounds. Does he have, he has devastating, oh no, it's the once per game he has currently, right? So this is, the once per game just turns into an enhancement? Yeah, that is worse. Each time the model declares a charge, blah, 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 blah. Once per battle, when you are selected to fight, if the unit is engaged with one of our enemy character units, you can use the ability. If you do, until the end of the phase, you gain devastating wounds. Interesting. Well, I guess we're just taking data sheet abilities and turning them into enhancements. That is a downgrade. Foreseen Paths of the Unholy. The unit has -3 inches of detection range. All right, I guess if that only works while you're hidden, that might be okay. It's interesting. Which I guess is fine because you'll probably be in a melee unit. So like that basically makes you 12-inch low nop on the Emperor's Champions unit. Okay, that's pretty good as long as you're in terrain, of course. Vision of Momentous Brutality, models melee attacks, +2 attacks. Fucking holy shit. Also, here's the thing I love about this chat. I actually, despite the fact that we are basically taking what are essentially, currently datasheet abilities and turning them into an enhancement, I love the fact that it's modal and it's modal per game. One thing I don't like in the new edition is that you're going to have to pre-declare your character attachments. And then obviously, a thing that's been true for the last 2 editions has been you have to pre-declare all of your enhancements when you construct your list. And so there's like not a lot of player control over the stuff that you do while you're in list composition. This you can, because you can choose this from game to game. So you're like, oh, I'm up against Tau. I'll take the -3 detection range, so it's harder to shoot me. And I'll take, I don't know, like a heroic intervention for cheaper or whatever. Or if I'm up against like somebody who's gonna like charge me world eaters or whatever, I can like make melee attacks and hazardous. I think that's neat. I love modal effects like that like really reward matchup knowledge, because I don't think that's something that 40k does enough, in my opinion. So +2 melee attacks, which is like pretty self-explanatory. That's pretty solid. Augury of Retribution, enemy attacks become hazardous. Cute. I love that. he's like parrying you every time you attack him. He's like cuts you. When you target the unit with the heroic intervention stratagem, the use is -1 command point. Love it. I like that they clarify that it's that use of the stratagem. That's one thing that they didn't do earlier in this edition, and it became a big question. It was like, reduce the cost of that stratagem by 1. Does that mean it's permanently reduced? No. That use of the stratagem. They have learned. Harbinger of Judgment, when an enemy unit, excluding monster vehicle, is engaged with this model, it's like to make a fallback move on a 2+, takes D6 mortal wounds. Love the effect. Don't love on a 2+. Rolling a 1 for your once per game enhancement feels not as fun and cool. But this rules. This is cool. So you could pay one detachment point to have an Emperor's Champion. That's fucking sick. I love that, chat. That's so fun. I like the idea that we could just like spend a whole detachment on one guy. I bet he's gonna have some cool stratagems too. He's gonna be this like little powerhouse. Blood Angels get Wrath of the Doomed. When a friendly Death Company unit is selected to make an advance route move, you can suffer D3 plus one mortal wounds to advance and charge. This detachment has the Doomed tag and cannot be taken with another Doomed detachment. Okay. So you'll probably it'll probably be you're not going to be able to stack it with like Rage Cursed Onslaught or whatever the equivalent becomes. D3 plus more mortal wounds. I mean, they'll probably have a Feel No Pain, so it'll probably be not quite as bad. D3 plus 1's a lot, but being able to advance and charge just like universally is great. So pretty cool. Instinctive Interception is an enhancement. You can use Heroic Intervention for 1 reduced cost. Seems fine. And here's the new Heroic Intervention. Target 1 unengaged unit within 12 inches of 1 or more enemy units. You can select a vehicle if it is walker or character. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it costs 1 CP, but it has a bonus command point that you can spend to improve it. Resolve a charge with your unit. While doing so, before making the charge model, select one of the following modes. Either Leap to Defend. You can select an enemy unit that made a charge move this phase and are within the maximum distance. And Into the Fray. When making a charge roll, if the result is greater than 6, change it to a 6. When selecting charge targets, you can select any enemy units that are within 6 inches of your unit and within the maximum distance. So, you're within 12 inches of an enemy unit. You can pay a 1 CP Heroic Intervention to reactive charge at the end of the phase something that charged within 12. Or you can pay 2 CP to 6-inch Heroic Intervene into any enemy. Hot damn. And then a lot of these effects reduce the cost of that. So you either do the core version for 0 or the enhanced version for 1 command point. Jesus. Also, here's a little bit of an important change. You can charge with character vehicles now. So if you are like playing, if Headhunter Task Force or something, the equivalent exists, you can heroically intervene with your tanks. Your Astreus can go in. Also, like Rogel Dorn tank commanders can heroically intervene now. That's a big change. To be able to pin people or put OC onto objectives. Interesting. It's interesting that the second version sets your charge distance to a maximum of 6. So you target an enemy within 6 if they didn't charge, and if you pay the command point, you only go 6 inches. It's not that you go up to 6; you only go 6. So it restricts the maximum distance you can move. You also have to declare that before making the charge roll. However, the new thing is that you can make a charge roll and then select charge targets, right? However, you can't be like, I'm going to heroically intervene. I'm going to roll a 12 and then select Leap to Defend, right? Because I have a target now. Oh, my cats are fighting. Sorry, chat. I think it's loud. Or if you roll like a trash heroic intervention, but you selected Into the Fray, I guess that doesn't change because you can just still charge reactive. You can reactive charge into charging enemies with the second version anyway. But you have to pre-declare the second version, the Into the Fray version, even if you don't know how far you're going. It's a little bit interesting. I'm a little bit spooked. It does feel, it feels quite a bit like they're trying to reduce the power level of ranged armies if you're just constantly being able to heroic intervene into people 6 inches away from you. Holy shit. I think that a lot of these like end of phase effects are going to make mid-turn battle shocks pretty important. It feels to me. That's been one thing in 10th edition that's been kind of a joke, is like being able to battle shock your opponent like in your movement phase or something has been like kind of meaningless in most cases, because then they just battle shock at the end of the turn anyway, or they unbattle shock, excuse me. But being able to prevent things like heroic intervention or Overwatch proactively might be pretty important. So like if you have drone harassment or something, it might actually be really, really strong. That's pretty wild, chat. The Tau hate crept in, yeah. They lost one too many games to fucking Riptide Battlesuits, and they're like, all right. If you move within 6 inches of me, I'm gonna fucking charge you, and then when you fall back, I'm gonna do 2 plus D6 mortal wounds to you. I'm gonna charge you at -1 command point, and then do mortal wounds. You fall back for me. Fuck you. You live here. You stay in melee, asshole. Pretty wild. It doesn't say you don't get the charge bonus, or heroic units would gain fight first. Potentially. I don't know necessarily exactly how the charge rules the charge rules work, because it might say that like units that charge in your charge phase gain fights first or whatever. And obviously this is if this happens in your opponent's charge phase, they might not get the effect. That might be baked into the core rules. I have no idea. Instinctive Interception. You can leap to defend for free or charge into the fray for just a single command point. You can also get closer to your enemies in your shooting phase. After your unit has shot, you can make a surge move towards whatever it was foolish enough to shoot it at it. Maybe. I like that surge move is, look at this, chat, more bold keyworded effects. We don't have to go to a rules commentary to like double check what the fuck that means. And it's not going to be reworded 100 times, so there's 100 slightly different versions, and we have to remember which one's which. It's just a surge move. Hell yeah, I love that. Cool. Well, that might be good. We'll have to see what the rules for surge moves are, because if it's anything like the current version, surge moves are very strong. However, it sounds like they could make it different with the new mechanics, so they could be worse. Who knows? We have no idea. Moving on to Dark Angels, chat. Dark Angels have the new Dark Age Arsenal detachments. Friendly Adeptus Astartes units. Weapon profiles with plasma in the names are plasma weapon profiles. Love it. All plasma weapons gain +1 strength. Fucking sick. All right, so we're up to strength 9 for most plasma weapons. We love that. You make Hellblasters even more powerful. What happens if your enemies try to stay out of range? Your plasma weapons can gain +6 range. That's pretty good. That's an upgrade, so we can put that on a couple different units. Seems good. I'm curious because we pre-declare character attachments, right? So if we have like Azrael, who has a plasma weapon, and he gets upgraded by attaching into a Hellblaster squad, which is a very commonplace to put him, because he gives you sustained hits and an inbound save, right? He can currently do that, right? I'm not crazy. I know that, like, right, for the longest time, the favorite place was, yeah, of course, you can go into Hellblaster squads. At least currently. Who knows if that changes? You would just put him in Starguard veterans, but I know Hellblasters is kind of the classic place to put him because you get the sustained hits. But I'm interested to know whether or not an enhancement or an upgrade, excuse me, chat, on the Hellblaster squad affects any attached characters, because then it would affect the character weapons as well. And you could potentially have 2 characters with plasma weapons in there, because you can also take a lieutenant who could take a plasma pistol. They have no access to like plasma long guns, but they could take plasma pistols, right? Yeah. So you could get another 18-inch range, strength 9 plasma shot in there. Interesting. Plus you get lethal hits potentially if those all stay the same. You can use the no sacrifice too great effect. When an Adeptus Astartes unit is selected to shoot. I guess also important to note is that the not not for nothing, your non-overcharged plasma shots go to strength 8 in general. Which is actually kind of sick, because then if you're firing into like T4 light infantry, so like Zangors, for example, and you're able to you wound them on 2s, but you don't have to overcharge to take hazardous, it's actually like not a nothing impact of the detachment. It's kind of fun. But when you go hazardous, you can go for an additional +1 strength, so you can go to strength 10. Oh, that's pretty okay, I guess. Yep, that's even what they say. All right, fair enough. I'm curious as to what the detachment points for this will be, because this has the potential to affect everything in your army, right? Especially in Dark Angels, because you can do like land speeder vengeances, which are like, you know, heavy plasma shots. You could do Redemptor dreadnoughts with the plasma cannons. They go to strength 10 base, right? Because they're base strength 9. This feels like it might be a 2-cost detachment or something, because it can affect like such a broad swath of your army, but doesn't just affect the whole thing. Curious. Champions of Fenris, it returns. Is it good? We'll find out, I guess. Infantry character units have the following ability: countercharge once per battle round per unit. You can use heroic intervention regardless of any other uses of the stratagem this phase. If you do, it does not prevent uses of the stratagem on other units. Okay. So new Champions of Fenris is that instead of having like this convoluted like counter attack thing, you just get unlimited heroic interventions. However, important to note, it doesn't give you free heroic interventions. It just gives you unlimited heroic interventions. And I guess the fact that like you can heroically intervene 12 inches is interesting. But like I have to pay a bunch of command points for it. I mean, maybe that's fine. They love the Space Wolf sub theme of like being the counterattack chapter. They always try to make it work. I don't know if it's gonna work. I mean, this is probably pretty effective, right? Especially because like you can target just super long range attacks. So if you're running a bunch of characters or whatever, or a bunch of captains that can like command point discount, you could just drop a bunch of heroic interventions all at once and just hope you hit them. Could be interesting. I don't know. You can name one of your characters as a giant amongst giants. It gives you +2 wounds and melee takes you +1 strength. That's kind of sick on like a Gravis captain maybe who halves damage. He goes to like 8 wounds. 8 wounds at strength 9 on his power fists. That's actually that's fun. A Wolfguard battle leader could go to a strength 9 Thunderhammer. Yeah. That's kind of cute. I don't know if that's particularly like wild, but it's pretty cool. I guess also you could put it on like combi lieutenants, right? That's like the real place it goes. You have like a strength 5 melee attack, so you're combi lieutenant, but also he just has 6 wounds of the feel no pain. He's just so obnoxious to kill. That's immediately where that's getting windmill slammed. Already that guy's like hard enough to deal with, and he just becomes even sillier. Any survivability enhancements on the combi weapon lieutenant gets crazy. Although in fairness, with the new stealth rules, he's not going to be quite as hard to kill because he's going to his saving throw is going to be a lot worse, and he's not really going to benefit from cover because he just has it all the time. We have a stratagem: walk between worlds, and your opponent's shooting or stalk between worlds. Excuse me. Your opponent's shooting phase an enemy unit targets a friendly Adeptus Astartes infantry character unit. That character unit gains stealth. Okay. Well. They definitely saved the least exciting for last. I think, chat. Dark Angels are over here with like strength 10 plasma weapons and stuff. And Space Wolves are like, guys, we can get stealth for a command point. We just have a smoke bomb. We can throw smoke grenades for 1 CP. But it's only characters. Okay. Well, cool, I guess. Cheers. So that gains stealth. Yeah, neat. Love it. You can't attach generic characters to Space Wolf units. It doesn't matter. This is not Space Wolf keyworded. You can just take it. Just works on your whole army. So like you can this will affect your like captains with like in assault intercessor squads and stuff like that. Like this affects everything. It doesn't matter that it is Space Wolf keyworded or not. I do wonder as well if the paradigm's going to shift. And I imagine, honestly, like I have a sneaking suspicion it probably will, because the current incarnation of Space Wolves is like, it's the Space Wolf keyword matters faction, where it's like all they want you to do is take normal Space Wolf stuff. It's like to take Space Wolf stuff with other Space Wolf stuff, and it has no like cross synergy with existing units. And it's very toxic and parasitic. I wouldn't be surprised to see if that changed. And if they allowed you to attach character units elsewhere. But in any case, this affects your whole army. It doesn't care whether or not you're Space Wolf keyworded. Obviously, the Space Wolf keywords, the Space Wolf keyword, it still exists, right? You know, it's not going anywhere. But it looks to me like the detachments are going to be most likely changing so that they affect everything. Like this is also obviously not Space Wolf character keyword as well. So it is what it is. The Dark Angel attachment makes Dark Angel Terminator goods because they have plasma cannons. So true, chat. That one plasma cannon's gonna get so much work done. You know, like unironically, I bet you could make Dark Angel's Terminators good if you make that plasma cannon just the equivalent of the one other Redemptor Dreadnought. Make it like 3 damage AP4 or whatever. Why is it D6 or D3 shots like 2 damage? It's so bad. Interesting. Well, chat, that is the Space Marine stuff. Should we talk about Orks? We can talk about Orks. If we want to. That was a long article, but it could have been longer. There's also the new Recon squad that we could talk about. It's a little bit of a palette cleanser. I don't really care about this unit, I think. This data sheet came out and I was like, neat, and then sort of glossed over it. It's a cool looking unit. It just doesn't feel like it's like that exciting. It does have a Vox caster and has a Vox relay beacon. At the start of the battle, you can set up 1 relay beacon token for this unit anywhere on the battlefield, not within your opponent's deployment zone. While an Alistair regiment unit is within 6 inches, officer units from your army can issue orders to that regiment unit as if the officer is within 6 inches of it. At the end of every phase, if an enemy unit is within 1 inch of a relay beacon token, you set up that token is removed. That's a legitimately good effect. It doesn't require proximity to the beacon. It just allows your officers to issue orders. Although it is important that it's regiment only, so you can't do it to vehicles. So I don't know. I think that's pretty good. It also works almost anywhere, just not in your opponent's deployment zone, which shouldn't be that big of a deal. So that's like pretty good. But ultimately, I think that this ends up being beyond that effect, which is like cool and unique. This likely ends up being a less efficient rattling unit, which is, you know, sort of a nothing burger of a unit, I guess. I don't know. You do get some like cool weapon options. Like you get special weapons like missile launchers and stuff. It has this independent operator a special rule, which lets you order them, and then the order persists permanently. I do love that they specify that the order persists until the game ends. Like, because there was that one guy who was like, well, it doesn't say, it doesn't go to the next game, so they still have to take cover from my last game I played. Get fucked. I think that makes me chuckle a little bit. I don't think that like matters at all. Right? But I don't know. Whether like when the order expires. I guess like maybe there's no argument that like if it's end of 5, they could like retain OC2, and there's no argument that they don't or whatever. But I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I think that's neat, but I imagine that this unit ends up being more expensive than an equivalent cost of rattlings, and Ren rattlings are just going to be better as an infiltrator anyway. So I don't know. Like there's like very, very marginally harder to kill than a rattling unit. And you can give them take cover, which is nice, but it depends on how expensive they are. They're 80 points. How much is a rattling squad, chat? 50? 60? Oh, maybe it's fine actually. It's 20 points more, and you get 10 more. You get 5 more guys, but you lose out on shoot and scarper. But you get like more survivability. All right, I'll buy that actually. That's probably fine. I was sort of assuming that the points value, the points cost differential was a little bit more dramatic. But for 20 points more and you get twice as many duders, plus you can take cover them permanently, like early game. That seems okay. All right, well, I'm a little bit more up on the Cadian Recon squad than I thought I was. Definitely think that this Vox Relay Beacon has the potential to be really cool though. Because you can do weird stuff, like you can pulse Yarrick's order off of it. So you can use like Yarrick's special order to jump across the table, hit another unit, and then pulse off that unit. To give everyone orders, which is actually going to be pretty effective, pretty impactful. So we'll see. All right. Cool, chat. Should we talk about orcs? You want to do orcs? Got to navigate to the article. One moment. Orcs don't get quite as much love as Space Marines here. On their faction focus. Starting with the Rolling Def detachments, it gives the wagon keyword to battle wagon, hunt a rig, and kill rig units. Wagon units get charge rerolls, and they auto 6 advances. You cannot take it with additional wagon detachments. So if you have multiple that buff wagons, I guess I don't know if that exists, but we'll find out, I suppose. You can upgrade wagons with boarding ramps to give +1 to charge when units disembark from them.
That is a Markazuma 9305 donated $2 through Super Chat. Holy Dodo, the video gives a shitload more info.
What video are we referring to, chat? The one, this one? The one at the top here? Ah! It's so loud. Are we going to watch a 15-minute video of 2 guys talking? I don't know if I'm that into it, chat. Is that Adam Camilleri? He's made it. He's going to the Games Workshop studio. That's cool. Good for him. Brutal Broadside gives essentially rapid fire to double all of your weapon profiles. Oh, the Space Marine video. Yeah, that one was not on the video on the article when I went to go do it. It was privated, so I couldn't read it. I couldn't watch it. I guess we could watch the video. Are we going to become a watch along channel, chat, or we just watch videos? So this, essentially doubles your attack volume while you're within half range of enemies. Seems pretty cool, but it depends entirely on what the battle wagon weapon profiles look like, because we have no idea what they will look like in this new edition. I have a sneaking suspicion they'll probably improve orc ranged profiles, because especially trying to deal with stealth or the new cover effects in orcs sounds absolutely fucking brutal. I have no idea how you're going to be able to do that if everything's base ballistic skill 5. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Otherwise, anything that buffs your ranged attacks is going to be like basically DOA. Orc Tactical Brigade gives Stormboy units battle line. You are still eligible to perform actions after you advance or fall back. So I think that this is going to be probably a cheaper detachment that you can combo with something else. And given the fact that we see a lot of primary objectives, like obviously these detachments allow you to massage your primary selection, your force, what's it called? Force disposition. You're going to be able to take primary that is action focused and then advance and perform actions with Stormboy's units. So I have a sneaking suspicion this detachment's actually kind of sick. especially if there are other good combo detachments that you can play alongside it. I bet it's gonna be pretty good. Advance and fall back and perform actions is like actually awesome. It's a cunning, more cunning than brutal detachment than the other ones. They talked about a new secondary mission. They do like note that it's an attacker secondary, but I'd be interested if that's the same thing that they have currently, where the action decks are just noted. I have no idea. I have a suspicion that I don't know if they would give you asymmetric secondary decks. And instead, it'll probably just be color coded for attacker versus defender, but not really have any mechanical effect. I always use the defender one because I like green, but we'll see if that ends up being the case. Interestingly, you can redraw dual action secondaries, is what it looks like here. So if you draw cleanse and plunder at the same time, you can redraw one of them in order to not force your army to do a trillion actions in one turn and not engage with your opponent. Which is interesting. Or you can hold it and have your 6 Storm Boys units advance and do all the actions and get 1 billion points. Plunder is an objective action that starts in your shooting phase when unit within area terrain, not within your territory, immediately plunders that area terrain. You gain 5 victory points at the end of your turn if an area terrain was plundered. Wait, what? Wait, you just get 5 victory points for being? It's a 1-turn sabotage for 5. Wait, this is insane. What the fuck? That's like so easy. I guess it's like, yeah, and it's also, it doesn't care. It's like sabotage where it doesn't care where the area terrain is. It cares where the unit that's performing the action is. When you're within area terrain that is not within your territory, once per turn, it completes immediately. The area terrain is plundered. If an area terrain was plundered at the end of your turn, you gain 5. Jesus, dude, that's so easy. What? That's crazy. Is our secondaries just the easiest things in the world now? Fuck me. Okay. Also, like, you're doing an action, so you're probably hidden too, right? So like your opponent has to go like push forward to actually deal with you. What the fuck? All right, okay. While your boys plunder, your war boss can be a slippery git with an enhancement that lets him infiltrate close to enemy units, so you can get to work right away with his power claw. So he can infiltrate an infantry war blast, excluding mega armor, but the model has stealth, not the unit. But the enhancement also lets your war boss join a unit of commandos. This must not be the full text. I don't think that they included the whole enhancement here, Chad. The model has infiltrator and stealth. Also lets you join command. I mean, I guess I'll take your word for it. That's not what you put in the little text, but sure. Weird. That's a strange thing to say, but okay. I guess that's fine. I also wonder like how cheap these guys are going to be, and especially because there's now new characters as well. If this is war boss only and doesn't work on the big boss models, that's unfortunate, because it would be interesting to like be able to incorporate this into lighter characters that can just like start up the table hidden, and like go do actions and stuff, or like fight utility units, right? Because like a standard war boss, like joining a commando unit's great. But you oftentimes want your commando units to be independent and not necessarily charging. But like having a war boss is just like up in the middle of the table that can just go charge people and like kill 5 Space Marines on an objective actually would be sick. So I don't know, not too bad. Dead Sneaky lets your commandos or Storm Boys disappear. You can go to Strategic Reserve. End of your opponent's fight phase if you are unengaged. That's incredibly strong, especially for the Storm Boys, who can probably deep strike, I imagine. More DACA is back. It gives infantry units ranged attacks assault, not big vehicles. Get wrecked. In your shooting phase, if the WOG is active for your army, Ork infantry units have sustained 1. Question is, do we have the stratagem to give yourself the WOG? Who knows? Being able to shoot after you advance adds more range to your guns. Chudas, of course. Increases the throw range of mid-range weapons like snaz guns on flash kits. Yes, indeed. Do flash kits not already have sustained hits, though? I mean, who knows if their data sheet is changing. They do. They do currently. But I guess the idea is that they can advance and shoot, which is fine, I suppose. Assault is not too bad, but again, we have to see what the actual stat lines are. Because if we're trying to roll a bunch of 5-up weapon skill guys into enemies in cover, we're going to have a bad time. Even with sustained hits. Orc infantry can be upgraded for dead shiny shooters to gain +1 rapid fire value. So those flash kits can go to rapid fire 2. We shoot 5 times. Rapid fire rocket launchers and tank busters is actually disgusting. I hate that. Thanks for putting that image in my head. Again, I wonder if this affects things like shock attack guns attached to a unit as well. I'm curious to see exactly how these upgrade mechanics work, because I do think that there is some like really interesting things you can do if you get the opportunity to attach an upgrade enhancement to a unit, put a character in unit to benefit from that, and then the character also gets an enhancement that can buff the unit. You can actually stack some like crazy combos together. It moves the combos to list composition rather than stratagems, I guess, because you're limited in stratagem usage in each phase now. There are loads of ways to make orcs angry. Shooting up them is one of them. What's up, Cat? How's it going? This is a shoot back strat. Your opponent's shooting phase an enemy unit that targeted a friendly orc infantry unit has shot. You target that orc infantry unit, you can snap fire back at them. Snap shooting is, we talked about this. It's the new Overwatch effect, where now some effects will just use the Overwatch thing, but you only hit on 6s and you can't reroll your hits, which is kind of a big deal. It also sometimes prevents you to start an action, but it doesn't say that you're ineligible to complete actions, which is a little bit strange. So I'm curious the use, like the cases in which that matters. I'm sure it will happen occasionally, but if I'm like overwatching in my opponent's movement phase and then like, can I do an action in their turn? Is that a case where it matters? I don't know. But I'm sure that there's going to be times in which that makes a difference. Don't see anything about Psychic. Yeah, Psychic is, I think, remaining unchanged, chat. They talked about the Librarius Conclave, and it's apparently just going to be, it's essentially the same, right? So it checks the Psyker keyword. It doesn't give any sort of special Psychic abilities. All right. Do we want to watch this video, chat? It's an hour long. That definitely is more more information than we had in this little article. Do we want to watch a full hour of the GW guys talking about stuff?
Of detachments for those at home, because we are going to be running through each and every single Space Marine variety.
Yes, we have obviously your Codex standard Space Marines. We've also got Black Templars, Blood Angels, Dark.
Those lines are a lot easier, but then if they want to stay out of those lines, they're just yours for the taking. You can just rolls to determine the amount of.
I don't know if I'm into this, chat. we do want to watch the full video. A 12-minute orc video, I guess. That's interesting. But a full hour of Space Marine video, chat? I'm a reaction streamer. God damn it. They don't even put the rules up. They just talk, apparently. Oh my god. I like this little setup they have. I like this like big LED screen behind them. Should I do one of those? Probably not. Okay, Cat. You are. Oh, irascible. You can't be rassed. Ah. Can I watch the video and summarize it? I mean, maybe. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we talked about the Red Terror data sheet yesterday. I think it's great. I'm very excited about that. As a Tyranid player, I would be excited. Oh my god, this cat's so loud, chat. They revealed 2 additional detachments for all Codex Space Marine chapters. Yeah, but it's Jesus Christ. Do you mind? Inky does not want to watch an hour-long Space Marine video. She's telling me right now. How many points is Inky? I don't know. She's some number of cat treats per day. So she requires upkeep. You know what, chat? Let's fucking watch this video. If I get demonetized, I'm blaming all of you. For doing a reaction stream to this thing. Is there a way that this looks less haggard than it currently is? No, not really. I mean, I guess we can do this. We're gonna skip some of the video here, chat. I don't think we're gonna do the whole thing because I can't be fucked. But we can skip through the boring parts, I guess, and go from there. 1 full hour of coverage. Let's go. Let's go, chat. Here we go. All right. All right, we need the dulcet tones of Adam Camilleri to treat us
the
to
new
some Space Marine
detachment. So
nonsense.
let's dive in and take a look at the standard, which is coming with the Armageddon box. We're going to see lots of those on the table soon, and this gives you some tools to use it.
Absolutely. So this will affect all your land speeder varieties, that being the storm speeder varieties, the hail strike, the hammer strike, and the thunder strike, in addition to the brand new land speed as you just discussed. They will get the ability to arrive from reserve turn 1. And of course, 3 of those, that being the storm speeder varieties, all come with deep strike inherently, and then the brand new one will of course be able to arrive from what we would have called strategic reserve.
Yeah, so I mean that's quite a powerful ability, isn't it? Like you're
that looks better.
To be very careful about deploying their units, knowing that you can.
We've already talked about this, guys.
The long angles, the short angles,
Turn
cover additional.
Yeah.
Which is bellicose weapons.
Yep, we talked about this one.
9.
We already know this one.
The classic land speeders flying around home somewhere, don't you?
Yes, I do.
So there's also some stratagems in there. One of them is called reactive evasion.
Yep, we learned about that
maximum
one.
Damage off, so being able to kind of pull.
I think a lot of this video is going to be skipping over the parts we've already heard about, chat.
It's useful.
In that, it sets a bunch of baits and traps for your opponent as well, arriving from reserve on turn 1 if you wish, in order to give your opponent a something they need to.
Here's an interesting question, which is that I actually don't know if this is the case, but this is gonna be fucked, by the way. This is in your first movement phase, you can make ingress moves, so it doesn't let you rapid ingress turn 1.
Generating value.
So it's like pretty limited utility, actually.
It moved away. Ha ha ha. Speed of tactics.
Cool. Well, moving on to the next of our detachments. This one is a kind of returning detachment with some changes. This is the Librarius Conclave.
Okay, we've learned about Librarius Conclave. We can skip that one.
Meaning that your unit might not be able to be shot at all.
So the snap shooting that covers Overwatch.
Correct. Meaning that and then if the telepathy discipline is active, that being the one where you are -1 to incoming strength when being targeted by range, you have -3 to detection range, which really doubles down on some of the Phobos shenanigans I was mentioning, in addition to just meaning that your unit might not be able to be shot at all.
So the snap shooting that covers Overwatch.
Correct.
That's like the main thing. There's a few other rules in the game that allow snap shooting as well, but mainly that means your unit can't be overwatched.
Correct. Really, really good.
You've also got one called Temporal Corridor there.
Targeted by range, you have -3.
What were they talking about?
You will want to take 3 of these.
They're really good.
And if you're librarians, if you take stratagems, in lieu of that, you get 5 enhancements, where you really get to tool your army to be fit for whatever you want that unit to be. You almost pick your enhancement for each one of your librarians. If you're taking 3 or so, you will want to take 3 of these.
They're really good.
And make sure you really maximize. So, for example, obfuscation, if I said that correctly, is for supplemental only. The enemy units cannot target you with snap shooting. And then if the telepathy discipline is active, that being the one where you are -1 to incoming strength when being targeted by range, you have -3 to detection range, which really doubles down.
So you get access to
Phobos shenanigans.
Ignore Overwatch.
In addition,
also ignore reactive shoot, I guess. Like shoot back from stuff is probably going to help. I imagine that stuff like Hellblasters will probably use snap shooting mechanics as well.
So the snap shooting that covers Overwatch.
Correct.
That's like the main
English
thing.
is hard.
We have rules in the game that allow snap shooting as well, but mainly that means
his English is the second language,
really
right?
good.
So.
You've also got one called Temporal Corridor there, which is a very useful ability, which is effectively you can put your unit back into strategic reserves and gain deep strike.
Correct.
that
And the
effect
one I
seems
really like
like
on
it's
this
gonna be
is
great.
to take a Phobos Librarian with just 5 infiltrators, because of course they already infiltrate, they have lone operative, and then if you are removing that unit, placing it back onto the table and off the table, you can always keep them one step ahead of your opponent.
Great for catching objectives, doing
Exactly.
actions, just
Yep.
getting in the way.
Just being really frustrating to your opponent, being like, I want to stop this unit scoring points, and you're like, no! Bounce it off the table again. And this one has the rider in addition, that if the telekinesis discipline is active, which is the same one I just mentioned, the -1
I guess you can do
incoming
that.
strength in shooting.
I feel like that's going
you'll
to be
get
very
deflect
expensive,
on
though.
that unit in addition.
Cool. Well, that's the Librarius Conclave. Last up of the standard Codex compliant detachments is Subversion Assets. This is a detachment that works with your Phobos and your Scout Squads.
That's
Now,
the
this is the
Phobos one.
I really think we'll see day one play, almost immediate adoption into day one play. Admittedly, depending on how many detachment points are available on the prospective builds people are wanting to work with. But this one slots right in because Phobos units and Scout Squads are already the premium utility.
They've indicated pretty
being
strongly
taken by
here
Space
that
Marine
those
generals all
are
over the world. So you already
Librarius
likely have
Conclave, I
2,
guess,
sometimes
is
to
a
4
lower than
units
3
that will trigger all of these abilities
cost
in your,
one, because they indicated that
day
you can
one
combo
army.
it with
As this one to
Phobos
me
stuff,
makes the
right?
most sense if people wanted to pick one up and just try the new rules, work into the new systems. This is where I'd expect.
Easier for the rest of your army to target.
Two of the ones I've mentioned previously, of course, you have infiltrators, which is going to be fantastic.
It's a little annoying that they haven't really determined. They haven't discussed what detection range is at all over the course of this whole
They'll
thing.
give you +1 to hit for the remainder of your army versus that target. And then, in addition to that, they'll be giving up this ability where they can shoot at one target and give you +1 to hit, and then spot another one and make them able to be shot at all because you've increased the detection range. And so it can really change the entire fundamentals.
Well, I
of your
guess
army to take a unit
that certainly seems to imply that it does increase the range at which you can target
to
hidden
having
enemies.
a full broadside.
So that's good.
And I think this is also really good on
Space Marines just build Eldar. I mean, Space Marines have always been, because they're sort of a jack of all trades and have such a broad model range, they've always been a flavor of other factions like put together, right? So like you're never gonna see, I don't think we're ever gonna hit a situation where Warhammer 40K where Space Marines don't have some flavor of like most other armies like baked into them. And this is like obviously Phobos units only, so it's not units that are doing damage. It's not like we're gonna be, we're doing a Jane Czar or whatever, where we have this like anti-infantry, like hyper fast anti-infantry unit that can just like cross the whole table in one turn and then beat up on your opponent.
At the end of your opponent's turn, and then they're also going to have perfect placement to get this 12-inch ability and to increase that detection range.
You've also got some great enhancements and some stratagems in there too. One of them is Shroud Field. That's an enhancement you can give to a Phobos model. Basically gives it lone operative and stealth.
Exactly right. Says it on the tin. Pretty good. Lovely place to start.
But it also means basically one of your Phobos characters can all of a sudden do the function of that whole unit, right? So he still gets all of the detachment rules. You can still sight enemy units for the rest of the...
It's in space would function just as well as your scouts, your infiltrators, your incursors, etc.
Yeah. And then the stratagem for these guys is, we're going to look at, is Strike from the Shadows.
We talked about all this stuff
Space Marines.
before.
Next up, we have Black Templars.
Black Templars. Let's go.
Finest miniatures in the Black Templars range, and your Sword Brethren squads.
Oh, we're talking about Sword
Next up, we have
cool.
Black Templars. We're starting off with Marshall's Household. This is a detachment.
Hey, a new
all
detachment.
About Sword Brethren.
Some of the finest miniatures in the Black Templars range, and your Sword Brethren squads in this detachment will get +1 objective control.
That's immediately quite useful. It means you can use them as your unit to push enemies off objectives, right?
Nice and clean, and if you can't kill them, at least you'll take away the objective.
That's neat, I guess.
Really good about this is that
I don't know.
One of the issues Sword Brethren will have is that if you have what I usually call it like the fist in the screen on an objective. Like you have one squad holding the objective and then another one screening that objective. If you can't connect with the one on the inside, you'll never get the objective off them. And so this allows you to have enough objective control to contest or hold that objective if you've killed your way through the screen.
And it means you could charge into
I hope no
like
one shoots at the unit that you have associated to.
You could kill half of them and then push the objective control in your favor.
Exactly right.
Obviously, there's some enhancements.
It's a little bit weird because Sword Brethren squads are relatively low model count, generally speaking. So, like, OC buff doesn't multiply very well on them. Generally speaking, you're only getting between +3 and +6 OC, which is, like, in many cases good enough to push the objective. But in that case, I don't even think it changes the math, right? If we're like, oh, it's 20 Orc boys and I'm 6 Sword Brethren, then I kill half the orc boys, and I'm 12 OC, and they're still 20 OC, so I would still lose it.
And some stratagems in the mix.
I would hope that
One
six
of the
sword brothers
enhancements
just kill all
is
the orc
a
boys,
unit
but who
upgrade,
knows?
Which is called Inheritors of Sigismund. You can give that to a whole sword brethren squad, and it gives them fights first.
Yes, now... a lot
Holy
of people
shit.
say About fight first, is it better, is it worse than it previously was? Of course, the change here is that the
That's very
fight
good.
first reaction will
Okay.
default to the active player, the person whose player turn it that it is. As some people are talking about how this diminishes fights first. I don't think it does as much as people think. I think fights first holds its place as a very powerful ability, and on sword brethren, it is fierce.
That was a big
Especially
discussion
if
that
you're
happened
gonna
when
be
they talked about how
charging
fights first works.
into melees that you think are going to be a slogfest, basically, that are going to go on for multiple turns.
Yep.
Actually, you're quite happy with your sword brethren unit with high OC for having a continued fight where you keep control of the objective, you keep just chomping through any enemies that come to you. If you're already engaged in a fight, you get to go first again in your next turn, right?
Yeah, it makes you a lot more resilient in the attrition war. If you get drawn into, there's a lot of armies out there that love that attrition, that grind. Death Guard comes to mind, and fights first still holds a lot of value in those matchups.
And then the obviously some stratagems in there as well for them. One of them.
Yeah, so essentially it's like a free interrupt, but like generally speaking, if you have a fight first unit, the active player is just going to hit them first anyway, and then you have to pay for your interrupt regardless. I mean, I guess like maybe it's... Well, we'll see how Heroic Intervention ends up working, because Heroic Intervention is like significantly more powerful now. Or I guess it's like, in some cases more powerful. You can't, it seems, command reroll a Heroic Intervention, so it's a little bit less consistent. But we're not sure necessarily if you get the fight first bonus if you roll it out. And if you don't, then I think there's going to be some cases where that still becomes very strong, because you're going to be able to manipulate your presence on the board to limit enemies attacking you, and then still fight at the same in the same step as them. So we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So like the thing that was pointed out when we were talking about the Heroic Intervention is that Heroic Intervention doesn't currently say that you do not get to fight first. So it might give you fight first naturally anyway, in which case we don't necessarily need it.
Layer of Abominations.
We don't need
This
another
is
effect
a fight
there.
phase stratagem, and it gives you +2 strength.
With the same microphone,
for
chat?
big stuff.
I think we
This is
do.
big. This is
Look
big.
at us.
So, 1 CP
Twinsies. Let's go.
in the fight phase when a friendly sword brethren squad is selected to fight. Units melee attacks when they're targeting a monster or vehicle have +2 strength. Now the reason this is big is because that army ability, as printed in the Black Templars Codex, remains, and one of those is the ability to have +1 to wound if the toughness of the target is higher than your strength. And then, so that means for the vast majority of your profiles that are strength 5 or better in melee, anything that is above 10 or above, you're wounding on 5s. +2 strength automatically brings that back to, you will wound everything in the game on a 4+. Just 1 CP, anything on the game is wounded on at least a 4+, if not better. And it gets you to a bunch of brilliant breakpoints.
Yeah, +2 strength is very often equivalent to +1 to wound, right? That it's unlikely that does not break the half barrier in generally speaking, right? So I think Adam's right there. It does. You do have diminishing returns if you choose accept any challenge. It's in Templar vows. It does have diminishing returns on lower toughness enemies, because like a lot of times if your strength is equal to their toughness, you're already getting +1 to wound. So you don't necessarily need the extra bonus. It is... Oh, I don't have the... Oh, yeah, accept any challenge. No matter the odds. So, like, getting bonus strength, like, so you can go to wound on 3s doesn't really matter that much, unless you can go to wound on 2s. So, strength 4 with +2 strength is good. Into toughness 3, because it gets you to wound on 2s instead of 3s. But a strength 4 into... And a strength 4 into toughness 11 becomes very good. But otherwise, you'd need like strength 5 into high toughness for it to matter.
7, 8, 9 as well.
But
And
that
because it's on the
does
unit
like
as well,
hit
it also
a bunch
applies
of
to
good breakpoints.
characters in the unit.
Yes.
So if you've got a marshal or a Emperor champion,
So go back to
in the mix,
initiative.
They also get that bonus, which is pretty
Correct.
tasty.
You do not want to go back to initiative for sure. That system was so fucked, by the way. So fucked. Initiative, it's like funny because it's like Old Hammer, and people are like, "Oh, I miss Old Hammer" because it's like nostalgic or whatever, and like the game is, is like worse now, and the game's not worse. The game's just different. I would say the game itself is better, but like I think your perception of the game is different, and how you approached it. So almost certainly different, because like back in the day, you didn't care so much about like being efficient or whatever. I think generally speaking, the community has altered their views quite a bit to focus on more competitive, like optimized play. Even in a casual format, right? You have people who are playing Crusade who want to like build their army to be as optimized as they can. And Initiative was just like, in the context of a game where people are not taking it particularly seriously, I think it can fly under the radar. But it's so fucked as a mechanic. It's so bad. The fact that because of this like arbitrary stat value, a unit physically cannot compete with an entire army in the fight phase is like absolutely fucking just so borked. Like a Necron unit, because they're initiative 1, like army wide, just cannot fight a Space Marine. You'll always lose. You're like, what the fuck? Why is that a thing? You know? I don't know. It's just incredibly dumb. Also, like sweeping advance being initiative based. So, like, not only if you're low initiative, would you swing after enemies attacking you, but then also they got a benefit. They got a bonus to kill you after you lost the combat. So you were worse against them, and they were also better against you. It was like a double. It was like a 1-2 punch. Absolutely fucking disgusting mechanic. I'm so glad it's gone, and it should never return.
Yeah, very tasty.
Speaking of characters, flawless segue into the next section.
We have one more strategy
sorry.
to do there. Apologies. Too keen. Love it.
There's another one. There's another strategy.
Yes, there is.
Blade of Detestation. What does that do?
So this is one command point in your charge phase.
Blade of Defenestration, more like.
The charge move. You will do a handful of mortal wounds on the charge.
Bring back
a
initiative.
pseudo, explosive or grenade-like ability. So select an enemy unit engaged with your unit and roll a d6 for each model in your unit that is engaged with that enemy unit on a 4+, 1 mortal wound up to 6.
Old school Hammer of Wrath, basically.
It is, and considering you can use explosives on the way in as well, and then you have insurance once you get there to punch up into those bigger units with the +2 strength. All of a sudden, a Sword Brethren unit can now flip the objectives, hold fights first.
Wait, can you do that? Hold up. Is that charge phase?
That is engaged. Charge move. You will do.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Love it.
There's another one. There's another strategy.
Yes, there is.
Blade of Detestation. What does that do?
So this is one command point in your charge phase.
Okay. All right.
You have insurance once you get there to punch up into those.
So the important thing is like, and we'll see if they end up staggering these stratagems out. It feels like something that's probably going to happen as we get better about designing rules explicitly for 11th edition, but staggered stratagem timing so that it affects like shooting, charge, fight is important. And I imagine that at some point for armies that have a lot of fight phase stratagems, what we're going to see is a push towards charge phase buffs that affect you in the subsequent fight phase, because you can no longer dual target a unit with 2 stratagems in the same phase at one time. So like being able to like deal impact mortals for a CP and then buff yourself in the fight phase is actually much more valuable in 11th edition than it is in 10th, which is
strength. All of a sudden,
it is what it is. I don't know if I love it so much, but
flip
it's
the
okay.
objectives, hold fights first, and combat some of the biggest, scariest things in the game much more effectively.
Jump out a tank, throw some grenades,
Yep.
charge a monster, kill a monster,
Yep.
kill the unit.
Yep.
Do it all.
Do it all,
Yeah.
baby.
Love it. Next up, we have Wrathful Procession. This is a detachment about chaplains. Chaplains obviously have a cool place.
Wrathful
Procession
Procession
don't tend to leave
Let's go.
your chapter keep without them.
Correct. Well, they don't
what
let
does
you.
this do for you?
They don't let you leave without them.
Right.
So I misread this when I read the first time, because of course chaplains come with a Rosarius. It's been, we've got 30, 40 years of them having that Rosarius. And
Not
having that 4-up
execrators,
invulnerable.
though.
When I read this the first time, I read it as chaplain units get a 5-up invulnerable save against range attacks. And I'm like, what? They already have a 4-up. But it's the unit. They give it to their unit. Chaplain units will get a 5-up invulnerable save against
that's really
ranged
good.
attacks, which is actually a game changer, because as it sits right now, some of the bigger,
Execrators do have an
Crusader
invulnerable
squads, 20 model
Judiciaries
units, and they have a
don't
varied
outside
armor
of
save
their,
against them, 4-up armor saves and 3-up armor saves.
melee attack.
Then just giving them all a 5-up invulnerable save. It's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, it makes them very durable, right? Like all of a sudden, your anti-tank weaponry are bouncing off effectively
Correct.
neophytes.
Yeah.
Which is pretty.
That's pretty
tasty.
cool.
Obviously, there's some
There's
enhancements and some
big-
stratagems in the mix
basically
as well.
army-wide, Steve.
One of them is adaptable executioner, and this is for the excoriator.
Execrator. Yeah.
Execrator,
It's a little different. Judica, Judicia, tomato,
Let's call the
tomato.
whole thing off. Yeah.
Yeah. When they're selected to fight this model.
Not even the Games Workshop people can fucking pronounce the names of the units that they designed.
As melee
Incredible.
attacks have.
That's so
Cleave
funny. I know these guys are
or
presenters
precision.
and not
we already
designers,
talked about
but
Cleave and how
that makes me
fundamental
laugh.
that is going to be to shaking up the game. So Cleave 1 is blast in combat. So for every 5 models in the unit that you are targeting attacks with, you'll get an additional attack. And what's the example we've been coming up with? 20 boys?
Yeah, so going to 20 boys, you get an extra 4 attacks.
4.
Which is pretty
4
tasty.
attacks.
Yeah. And those are good solid attacks as well. They're multi-damage, high-strength attacks.
Yeah. Strength 6, multiple damage. Absolutely fantastic. Or they can have precision as well. So you've got a tool for each occasion. If you want to go into an elite squad, try and get rid of their characters.
I love those
maybe
modal
Chaos Lord and
effects.
unit are chosen. Or if you're going into hordes, you're playing against,
Now, there was something that they mentioned earlier, and this is in another preview article, in Red Terror's article, I think. But they mentioned that precision could target individual unit models in a unit.
Or they can have precision as well. So you've got a tool for each occasion. If you want to go into an elite squad, try and get rid of their characters. Maybe a Chaos Lord and unit are chosen. Or if you're going into hordes, you're playing against, a blob of 20.
I'm actually curious, chat, if that is still in the article. Because I do wonder if that was maybe a mistake. Because it doesn't sound like they're talking about it in the context of it. Oh, they changed it. The first version of this article said, worried about a sergeant swinging a power fist your way. They changed it, chats. They keep changing these articles on me. They pull the rug out from under me. Right as I think I have a scoop, they go back and edit their articles. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. All right, well, fair enough, Jen. So it looks like precision's not changing. I know that was a big open question in the new mechanics, but it seems like precision's staying exactly the same. But we'll see. Always target the best made model in the unit. Yeah, you're like, if I got to precision anything, precision the test model that you painted. And they're like, no, but I spent 2 hours painting him, and he's not even relevant. He won't be able to fight. And you're like, kill him. I want to kill that one.
27 guardsmen because they've got a command squad and an Ogren bodyguard. You just start.
AI made a mistake.
Particularly good if you've charged him.
But Chat GPT is so good at 40k. We already talked at length about how good Chat GPT is at remembering 40k rules. Just give every Space Marine unit reroll once to hit. That will make the game better.
Something like a big Crusader squad, and they've got a model that's making the unit harder to kill. So if you've got something that's giving it feel no pain or invulnerable save or something like that, then you remove that, and all of a sudden future attempts to hit that unit is going to be much easier. They've got some stratagems as well. They've got Right, a Preferred Wrath. This is a thing that you can give to a chaplain unit, and it gives the whole unit +1 strength.
This is amazing. As previously stated about the
that's
+2
interesting.
strength for the Sword Brethren, which had the caveat
It's a buff
of
for
being
the
into certain
chaplain?
units. This is a blanket chaplain unit giving it to everything. And of course, we're talking about possibly running this with 20 Crusaders and giving them all +1 strength is an amazing ability. The High Marshal of the Black Templars himself, High Marshal Helbrecht, gives +1 strength as one of his abilities, and to the unit that he joins, and just having one command point to copy that ability is actually quite premium.
I imagine that indicates that he will also be granting +1. That's in addition to his +1 attack. But like in previous, he did +1 attack, +1 strength. And they said it's one of the abilities. So it sounds like I imagine that someone could interpret that as the fact that he loses his +1 attack buff, but it doesn't seem like that's the case.
And then last up, we have a detachment that works off arguably the most iconic model in the Black Templars army. This is a detachment just about the Emperor's Champion.
Correct. It is literally all
No,
about...
I think I missed...
That you can give to a chaplain unit. They've got some stratagems as well. They've got unit caveat.
So the +1 strength is a stratagem buff, not an enhancement, which is a little bit less good. Especially because you can accept any challenge no matter the odds. Pushing from strength 4 to strength 5 is not very useful in a lot of cases, unless you are explicitly targeting T5 enemies, right? Because a T5 enemy, you'll push the unit to win on 4s, which means with accept any challenge, they'll win on 3s. But in every other case, it doesn't really matter that much because you go from strength 4 to 5, so you don't hit any of the low toughness breakpoints. So that stratagem is not hyper useful. I guess you can push Sword Bros to strength 6 on the power sword attacks, which is useful into T11 vehicles or T10. So maybe that's fine. That gets you to win on 4s, but it's very limited use case.
Black Templars all the time. I can just play a fundamental, good, strong Black Templars list and then have a super version of one of my favorite models in the entire game.
I think
that brings me so much joy.
And he's one of those models that, like,
I love that idea, by the way.
get the whole army because you're like, this guy's cool.
Yes,
Like, the lore is cool, the
yes,
model is cool,
yep.
the concept is cool. I want this guy to be great, and this just makes him cooler.
So everything I just mentioned there, the pick 3 abilities, that is the enhancement for this detachment. This detachment doesn't come with stratagems, of course it's functioning around a single model. The rider to that enhancement is that it does not cost you take the pick 3 abilities. That is the enhancement for this detachment. This detachment doesn't come with stratagems, of course.
It doesn't come with stratagems? What? What? The Emperor's Champion detachment has no other buffs for Emperor's Champion besides the one thing? That sucks. Give the Emperor's Champion unit like something cool, chat. What the heck? I don't know. It feels like weird because like he could attach into a unit theoretically. So like why can't we just give him like a cool buff for his unit? I don't know. That's very strange. I do like the idea of building detachments around individual models or individual units and having like a detachment that you can burn a whole detachment effect, but it just hypercharges one dude is sick. Having it give you no stratagems is really unfortunate, though. That is unfortunate. I don't know about that one, chat.
Next up, we have the Space Wolves, 3 detachments to go through. The first of them, Champions of Fenris. This is a returning detachment. Adam, what does it do?
This is all about your infantry characters and allowing them to do one of the core fundamental ideologies of Space Wolves and bring that back to the fore. As one of the constant ideologies I have about Space Wolves is countercharge. And it was a fundamental rule that they had for many editions in the past, and now it's coming back.
Yeah, so one of the things that's worth saying is that this detachment lets you countercharge almost a standard, but countercharge as an ability has changed.
Yes.
It's more useful than it used to be. Previously, you could only countercharge into things that had charged.
Mm-hmm.
In the new edition, you can countercharge into any enemy unit.
Within 6 inches.
Within 6.
Yep,
yeah,
within 6 inches. This is so fundamental for defending objectives and for maintaining your scoring potential in the game. And the fact that what this allows you to do is to use those 2 versions, either one of those for one less, regardless of if you use this stratagem already. So I'll just read it out verbatim. Once per battle round per unit, you can target this unit with the heroic intervention stratagem, regardless of any other uses of that stratagem this phase. If you do so, that unit does not prevent any other uses of that stratagem on other units this phase. So that is insanely powerful. That is really, really, really.
I mean, maybe
big.
it is.
And just telling your opponent that you can't just walk onto my objectives. You can't just willy-nilly scream.
It costs you command points,
essentially
though.
adding the effects of a surge move psychologically to your opponent.
Okay. I like that. So Adam, it was a little bit of a slip up there. Adam was like, you can heroically intervene for 1 less. Checks notes. No, you can't. It's like, wait a minute. This is actually maybe a side grade from the current version of a detachment that's already unplayed. I'm sure it's going to be better than I give it credit for, but the fact that it's just going to constantly burn command points from you does feel a little bit bad.
If you pile out and try and kill a Space Wolf unit, you kind of have to kill them all, or they're going to be in combat with you in your own combat phase.
And of course, you do pay the command points for this ability, but it's an extremely powerful ability. It's such a strong forward-facing deterrent to your opponent's plans. That's going to
we're trying real hard here. I don't know.
Among Giants, this is a way to...
Yeah, we know about that. Enhancement.
Like a gravity.
Yeah.
Ingress into your opponent's backfield and just be a problem.
To gain stealth.
Yes, so this is 1 command point for reactively a infantry character unit getting stealth, and seeing as cover gives a similar like effect to it. So this can be when you
931 donated $5 through super chat. Chat thinks an orca has a stronger bit force than a trek. You know, the thing that is 6 by 6 times the bit force of a crocodile. The source, Reddit.
Incredible. Thank you, ChatGPT. You're so helpful. Reddit has never been wrong about anything in the entire history of the human race. And so it being used as a primary source for a thing that's giving lots of people their information these days is certainly not going to have deleterious implications on the society as a whole. How would I feel if the first heroic intervention per battle round was free and then you could use it again for cost? That would feel very good, for sure. That'd feel very good. But I think like heroic intervention is already a thing that's probably going to come up like 1 once or like maybe sometimes it comes up 2 times in a single turn. And having your whole detachment ability, I mean, we'll see how expensive it is, right? If it's a 1-point detachment and you can add it onto a bunch of other effects, like it's probably going to be fine. But who knows? They haven't talked about any detachment costs right now. But like this, having a whole detachment dedicated to this thing that's only going to matter 1 time per game probably is like, I don't know. It's just not that exciting. In fairness, a lot of the other detachments are kind of like that, like the Phobos one being like extra detection range. Okay, how often is extra detection range going to change the board state in a big way? I don't know. We'll find out. I haven't played any games with it, but it does feel a little bit like some of these are going to be kind of limited use case.
Have, let's say, pushed forward, you've heroically intervened out into the open to
You've had to
contest,
commit
something, you can still get that bonus and a bit of resilience.
Cool. Well, next up we've got Legends of Saga and Song. This is a detachment that works with your Terminators. And Space Wolf Terminators,
let's go!
A very powerful unit in the game right now. This only makes them better.
Some of the best Terminators in the game are possibly the best melee Terminator varieties in the game.
That's wrong.
Just simply give them
hold up. Let's roll that back. The best melee Terminators? I don't know, man. Deathwing Knights and Chaos Space Marines like to have a word, my dude.
All your Terminator varieties.
Yeah, so this is usually deep striking Terminators in.
Yep.
So it makes the thing that they're trying to do anyway, which is dropping in, charging, all the more reliable.
And especially the rapid ingress threat as well. Only, when you rapid ingress, it's 8 inches away, not 9 inches away now. And then when you move forward from there, you're just going to get more and more value in trying to connect.
Wait, so what's the ability?
Just simply give them +1 charge to all your Terminator varieties.
Oh, +1 is to charge.
So this is usually deep striking Terminators in. So it makes the thing that
That's
they're trying to do
good.
anyway, which is dropping in, charging, all the more reliable.
And especially the rapid ingress threat as well. Only, when you rapid ingress, it's 8 inches away, not 9 inches away now. And then
I like that.
Gives a unit
I
of
like that.
Terminators +1 toughness.
Yes, this doesn't need to be attached to a character. This can just be on a lone unit of Terminators. +1 toughness is a brilliant breakpoint. Of course, Space Wolf Terminators already have -1 to wound. His strength is higher than toughness, and this takes that to a new breakpoint.
Yeah, so it just makes them even harder to kill. This is probably going to help them against some of the small arms fire. One of the ways you take them down, right, is just lots and lots of hits at low APs. This can potentially take them past certain breakpoints.
Well, yeah, all the toughness 3, strength 3 attacks are now going to win them on 6s, and then the 5s to 5, strength 5 to winning on 5s. So it really works against the low to middle bracket of
your heavy bolters and that
sort of
stuff.
Yeah, exactly right.
Great. And then the stratagem we've got for these guys is Wings of the Blizzard, and basically allows that Terminator unit, once they've dropped in, they've made that charge, because they get the +1 charge, they've killed the enemy unit, they can then pull back into reserve.
So usually I would say, this kind of ability is, it's a good utility thing. It's not something I would always usually want to do on a Terminator unit, much rather like this on a utility unit. But fundamentally here, within the scope of Space Wolf Terminators, melee Terminators, exclusively I think this is a very powerful ability when it's attached to Terminators. Because when I play against Space Wolf Terminators, I usually let them hit something, and then I run away. And then they have to walk at me while I'm running away faster than they can catch me.
Fastest, for sure.
But this lets you one command point, bring them back up, put them back down right in front of your opponent, and make them a problem again.
Yeah, especially if they're such a tough unit, right?
I doubt that we have correctly discussed exactly what this effect is. He said, what's this guy's name? I forget. Did they give his name on the thing? I don't watch these videos very often, chat. All right, who knows? He said that when you charge and kill a unit, you put the unit back in reserve, which turns them into warp talons. It sounds like that's not the stratagem.
Unit, but fundamentally here, within the
lots of hits at low APs.
So it really works against the
allows that Terminator unit, once they've dropped in, they've
made their charge,
killed the enemy unit,
they've killed the enemy unit, you can put them back into reserve.
I would say, this kind
that's
of ability
crazy. That's fucking sick. If that's what it is, after a Terminator unit destroys the enemy, they go into reserve. That's fucking wild. If that is actually what happens, like if that's actually the strat, that stratagem is awesome.
It's a good utility thing. It's not something I would always usually want to do on a Terminator unit, much rather like this on a utility unit. But fundamentally here, within the scope of Space Wolf Terminators, melee Terminators, exclusively I think this is a very powerful ability when it's attached to Terminators. Because when I play against Space Wolf Terminators, I usually let them hit something, and then I run away. And then they have to walk at me while I'm running away faster than they can catch me.
Fastest, for sure.
But this lets you one command point, bring them back up, put them back down right in front of your opponent, and make them a problem again.
Yeah, especially if they're such a tough unit, right? You can use
Exactly,
this as a mobile roadblock to get in the way of whatever you want to be stopping.
Spot on.
And you need half an army to fire at them before this unit goes down.
Yeah, exactly right.
Great stuff. And then last up, we've got
All
veterans.
right. I have
of
a
the Fang.
sneaking suspicion, chat, that is a that's an aerial extraction strat, and guy on the left here whose name I forget, probably misrepresented it. If it is a Warp Talon effect where you kill a unit and then immediately go into reserve, that stratagem is fucking awesome. I have a sneaking suspicion it's just an up down. That certainly seems like what Adam was referring to it as, is like he was like, this is a good ability on utility units, but it lets Terminators reposition sometimes, which feels like a much more couched opinion than when 10 Terminators and Arjack Rockfist kill a unit, I get to put them into reserve and then hold them up for rapid ingress next turn, and then cycle charge you for the rest of the game without you attacking me. Which I have a sneaking suspicion is not how it works. But obviously they didn't show us the stratagem, so we can't actually know. I hope it works that first way, because that's fucking awesome.
One of the iconic units of the Space Wolves, Grey Hunters. It's a unit that I think Space Wolf players love, but we haven't seen a lot of play recently, and this is going to help them out.
This detachment is big, and I want to see people trying this one out on day one. Grey Hunters have, there's been past edition where Grey Hunters have been one of the most fearsome units in the entire game. You and I are reminiscing about a certain 4th edition where Grey Hunters and Rhinos were absolutely terrorizing the tables. And I think
the OG Space Wolf codexes were so fucking busted.
Right back into the fray.
Just strictly better than regular Space
Marines. A Grey Hunter unit, they can start an action and still are able to shoot. And if you've read the missions, if you know how this is going to work, there are so many more actions in the game. They're fundamental to your scoring ability and your projection into winning or losing the game. In addition, and this is the one that gets me, in the declare battle formation step, you can split a friendly Grey Hunters unit into 2 units of starting strength.
Oh, that's sick.
So all of a sudden it gives you multiple units that are able to do actions while still contributing to the battle, and also
that's good.
They can get into transports. They can do more jobs than the Grey Hunter unit previously was able to.
Well,
we fixed the Grey Hunter problem.
Intercessor merged into one with an extra objective control. Their objective control 3.
There's 15 for a little sort of 5, which is great.
Look, it's so many times 30 is too much when you have a unit of 10. You're like, I don't need 30. But 15 is fantastic. It flips all the 10 objective control units. So, of course, you have things like Witches, Cavalite Warriors that are going to be running
fucking
around
sick.
Venoms. You have so many
enemy
5
That's
units.
fucking sick, chance.
Enemy intercessors.
Yep, so many 5 model units that have 2 objective control, or things like Pathfinders that start off the table with 1 objective control. They are mostly cap out at 10. But then your unit of 5 guys is 15.
And if you really need to, you can just have multiple units converge.
Exactly right. And then something you pointed out as well, it changes the transports that they have available to them. It used to be if you took a unit of 10 Grey Hunters, the only transport that was applicable to them was a repulsor. But now the Impulsor is perfectly able to use and deliver these units for you, flip objectives, do actions while still shooting and taking away objectives is amazing.
If the data sheets don't change, the ability for an Impulsor to advance, disembark 15 OC of Grey Hunters that can full reroll shoot into a utility unit, and then also act is actually sick. This detachment seems fucking awesome. Oh boy, that's super cool. That's the fact that gets me excited about OBSEC. Or not just objective control, like characteristic spam fucking Space Wolves. That sounds sick, chant. You're just like, you got like 6 units of 5 Grey Hunters in a like a bevy of vehicles running around, and you have to deal with all these fuckers. If you have like any sort of way to give them advanced charge or something, like it's gonna be disgusting. Their base move 7.
You could go onto one of their
unironically kind of psyched about that.
Shoot and damage one of their projecting pieces, and then also be taking away the primary score and doing an action at the same time. They like tick, tick, tick.
Just a really useful unit.
This is good. They shoot right to the top of one of the best utility units available to Marines.
There's a bunch of great enhancements and stratagems. We're going to look at 2 of the enhancements. The first of them is Eye of the Hunter. This is an ability you can give to a Wolf Guard battle leader. So one of the units you tend to find leading Grey Hunter units. And the unit's range attacks now get Assault, Ignores Cover, and +1 AP.
Kind of everything. They just gave them everything. Ignores cover, so a pseudo +1 to hit, in addition to +1 AP on also all the bolt guns.
Rerolling wind
The
rolls.
bolt guns, maybe bolt guns are pretty good right now, and then assault as well. So theoretically, you're coming out of that impulsor to try and get an angle. You can't advance and do an action, but you'll still be able to get onto that objective, flip it, and then damage the opposing units.
Yeah,
and then
seems
having
kinda
a Norse
mid, I
cover
don't know.
and +1 AP into the package, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and you can imagine that going on a Grey Hunter unit is kind of where you'd picture it going. That unit's already getting
Because
rerolls on
Wolfguard
some
battle
of its
leaders,
attacks.
unless they change their attachment options, Wolfguard battle leaders they don't attach to any dedicated range units. So it you could put it on a tenor of Grey Hunters, and then they have 30 rerolling AP one shots. Is that fine? I don't know, but it's also going to be expensive to put a character and an enhancement in there. Yeah, it seems okay, I guess.
Because
For sure.
especially the enemies on objectives and things like that. So this becomes a fairly terrifying unit. So
Sounds amazing. Also, I hate it.
One big one
For sure.
led by your Wolfguard battle leader with all the combos, able to remove almost any enemy scoring unit.
Correct. So the way I see this working and filling into the Space Wolf lexicon is that if you just took out a couple of the utility units in your already freestanding, very strong Space Wolf army and added 2 units of 10 Grey Hunters, you have 4 units of 5 Grey Hunters now. And it's completely reimagined the utility package of them. And they're not just utility units. They will win toe-to-toe battles with most of the other utility units in the game, whilst being more objective control, being able to do actions.
The biggest downside
in
of them
various
being
ways.
10-man squads.
Superb. But we still have a stratagem.
We still got
Just
and another
being
enhancement. We got Weaver of Saga.
absolutely
This is a
removed
Wolf
is
Priest
crazy.
upgrade. This effectively allows one of your Wolf Priests to remove Battle Shock from an Adeptus Astartes unit if that unit's within 6, but if it's a Grey Hunters unit, you can do it within 18.
Yeah, so this is quite big, of course. Battle Shock now isn't something that fades off. You have to continually test to be unbattle shock. In previous editions of the game, it works similar to pinning, where you would have to constantly test to see if you're unpinned. Otherwise, you would fire snapshots and you'd be stuck in place. Battle shock now persists. Once you are battle shocked, you must test to become earn your unbattle shockedness. And having this is just an ability.
Oh, chat. That is a big fucking change, bro.
Edriong 6931 donated $5 through Super Chat. He hesitated before saying impulse. Conspiracy theory. He didn't want to say Rhino because it's getting a new model with Codex.
I mean, maybe, I guess. I don't know. I feel like that's tinfoil hatty. I think he probably hesitated because he had to remember whether it was impulsor or repulsor was the correct one. Battle shock change. Actually, Tyranids might become actually goated if that change it affects your Shadow in the Warp, because anything that fails has the chance to continuously fail in the future. It also means that any effects, we were just talking about how the fact that stratagems being relegated to end of phase in a lot of cases means that your ability to pile battle shock onto people before they're able to react to you is kind of huge, right? So if I can Overwatch at the end of the phase or heroically intervene at the end of the phase, but I have effects that can battle shock you before we get to that step, already those are going to be slightly more effective. And now we're also talking about the fact that if I have an effect, I hit you with a fucking Terminator or something, and he forces a battle shock check at the start of the fight phase. When you go back to your turn, you have to battle shock again. That's crazy, chat. It's not the wildest effect, but you could just have these crazy persistent chains of poor battle shock rolls. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the fact that it could just randomly lose you the game, but it does make battle shock a much more consistent mechanic for the player applying it to the enemy. As someone who consistently plays armies that have battle shock manipulation, despite the fact that I don't really like the mechanic to begin with, it just happens randomly. It is very strong. That is a big change that they just dropped in there. Fuck, chat. Hot damn, dude. Infernus Marines actually deny objectives now? Yeah, Infernus Marines, Witch Seekers, all that stuff that forces battle shock in your shooting phase becomes actually relevant. Interesting.
It might be big.
But you can imagine the way that this army might work is that you've got multiple units of Grey Hunters across the battlefield, units of 5 or 10. Those units of 5 potentially quite susceptible to battle shock if you've lost 3 of them. So the ability to kind of go, actually, you 2 there, unbattle shocked, immediately 6 OC on that objective, just with 2 models left. It's great.
An Armiger Warglaive is 6 objective control. And, you know, it goes in, it fights, it kills 3, they battle shock.
Yeah, Salamander stonks up. Let's go.
And then last up, we have a stratagem. This is Grizzled Killers, and the unit's melee attacks this time, because Grey Hunters, a great shooting unit. We talked a little bit about their bolt guns. Also excellent in melee. They've all got chainsaws. Gives them sustained hits or lethal hits.
Yeah, pick your poison, 1 command point. Which one makes more sense to you? Is either lethals or sustained. It's
Are you
fantastic.
punching up or punching down?
Yeah,
basically?
correct. Do you need to clear the hordes, or do you need to punch up into something durable?
Yeah, so maybe seeing more Grey Hunters on the battlefield very soon.
I hope so. The models are fantastic.
Interesting sort of
and I think
anti-synergy
this detachment is really well designed
to get lethals on a unit that wound rerolls.
Brilliant. Cool. That was Space Wolves. Next
weird.
up, we've got Blood Angels. Next up, we've got Blood Angels. Blood Angels, obviously the stars of the Armageddon box set.
Bucket
the
of
first attack we're
Steel
going to
Civil
look at
donated
is
$2
Grace.
Canadian
Adam,
dollars
what
and
does it do?
This one
79
is
cents
predicated all
through
around your
Super Chat.
infantry characters.
Sidonian
and
Skatos meta incoming.
Let's go. The Stilt Man is king. It's because he's so tall.
infantry character units will simply just get +1 to advance.
Thank you for the
and
super
charge
chat.
rolls. This is one that has a rider saying it can't be used along any further detachment that have the Grace keyword, which of course doesn't mean much yet. Might mean some more in the future, but just off, it's Blood Angels. +1 to advance, +1 charge is fantastic.
So your units are already quite fast, right?
Yeah.
So they've either got jump backs or they're deep striking in.
Yep.
So additions to that advance and charge is great. You're just going to get into combat faster, which is where you want to be.
Exactly right. Of course, you'll be able to be doing this while taking advantage of the hidden mechanics as well to try and keep your units from being shot. And,
So you said that has it applies to Grace units, but didn't talk about what those
Obviously,
are.
the stars of the Armageddon box set. The first attachment we're going to look at is called Legacy of Grace. Adam, what does it do?
So this one is predicated all around your infantry characters, and infantry character units will simply just get +1 to advance and charge rolls.
Oh,
This is
okay.
one
It's
that has
Angelic
a rider
Inheritors.
saying it can't be used along any further detachment.
Understood.
That have the Grace keyword.
Understood.
Which of course doesn't mean much yet. Might mean some more in the
Character
future.
units getting
But
+1 to advance
just
and charge,
off,
very good.
It's Blood Angels. +1 to advance, +1 charge is fantastic. Exactly right. Of course, you'll be able to be doing this while taking advantage of the hidden mechanics as well to try and keep your units from being.
The first one we're going to look at is Blood Boil. This is a returning ability for Blood Angels players. I remember that from earlier codexes. This is a boost to your Psychers.
Yes, so this is for an Adeptus Study Psycho model only. The model's psychic attacks will have anti-everything that isn't a monster or vehicle, 5+. So that's anti-infantry, beasts, swarms, etc., 5+, and can re-roll the damage rolls.
So just a really useful ability to take out kind of
Oh,
anything,
that's
really.
helpful
Just-
because if it's a Psyker, it almost certainly has devastating wounds, right? On its overcharged smite. So like a librarian, the current smite profile is devastating. So having or critical wounds on 5s is helpful there.
makes them better.
That's
at-
good into like
Exactly,
medium or heavy
exactly right.
infantry.
And then the stratagem we're going to look at is Aura of the Angel's Grace. This is an ability to give Adeptus Astartes character unit an invulnerable save.
Yes, so a reactive 5-up invulnerable save in the shooting phase when you've been targeted by your opponent for 1 command point. This is really good on so many units. Essentially everything that isn't a sanguinary guard, they already come with a 5-up
That's for like
invulnerable save, but
Lamarties.
Your
It's
jump pack
good on
intercessors,
Lamarties.
your death company, everything else is just being like 1 CP, and you'll know when this is good, of course. So it was previously that a 5-up invulnerable save wasn't that impactful on marine bodies because you'd have to be
it's a really good
AP3
call out,
or
too.
better to push them past a 5+ invulnerable save if you were in cover or had access to armor contempt. But now with cover changing to be -1 to hit, things like this ability I think are much more powerful.
Yeah, I think armor saves generally won't be as high in the new edition.
Correct.
So anything that
Thank God, by the way. Fuck me. Ugh. I know hit rolls are going to be a thing, but it's easier to buff hit rolls generally speaking. It's harder to buff AP like across the board in 40k. Thank God we're not running into this like everything's a 0+ armor save in the fucking metagame that we have to deal with for 3 years. God damn, dude. I'm excited to shoot an AP2 weapon at someone and have their models be removed from the table sometimes.
extra armor saves.
What a time to be alive.
Invulnerable saves.
Let's
immediately
go!
becomes More useful.
Well, previously, if you were in cover, an AP3, a plasma attack, you would still have a 5-up armor save because you would -1 to it by armor contempt like ability, or just being in cover. Whereas now that is just a 6-up. You don't get to have a say unless you have spend a stratagem. Well, what if you wanted to spend a stratagem for armor contempt in one place and then on a different unit have a vibrant bond will save?
Indeed.
Pretty good.
Next up, we've got the Encarmine Spear Tip. This is a a detachment that boosts the Sanguinary Guard, one of the most powerful melee units in the Blood Angels force.
In the game.
The game. This makes them better.
You get to fall back and do as you please. Yeah, pretty much. Apart from falling back and starting an action, they can do anything else. That's fall back and shoot, fall back and charge on any of your Sanguinary Guard units. Very clean, very powerful.
And they can do
That
both
seems
as well.
okay.
So the shooting tends to be quite powerful. They've got pretty tasty little guns. They can put some melter in the mix there as well.
-1 to hit
obviously,
spam. We'll
they want to
see.
be charging, right? They want to be getting in,
We'll
and getting
see.
bonuses, striking first.
Where this is more powerful is because of the way Fights First has changed and it's being, defaulting to the active player now. So if you were to stay in combat and have multiple ongoing combats, things can, get a bit messy. So just fall back, re-engage, get Fight First active again, and just domino effect down the line with your Sanguinary Guard.
Makes them very hard to pin down as well, right?
Exactly
Like, they don't want to be in a protracted fight. They want to be kind of picking their targets, choosing the enemies they want to be killing,
Absolutely
and moving on, basically.
Yeah.
There's some enhancements. One of them is Shadow of Abomination. This you can give to an Adeptus Astartes jump pack model, and it makes them hit harder.
Yes, this is everything you want to the Blood Angels general. This is just
It makes them hit harder.
per game, per battle, per army. At the start of the fight phase, you get +1 damage on your character. Space Marine captains love this one trick because they're once per game. Their finest hour ability, which is
We
already
can
once per
add
game,
attacks
just
and add
dial
damage at the
it
same
up.
time.
So damage 3 on your Power Fists and your Thunder Hammers, which already have devastating wounds on the Thunder
That's
Hammers.
pretty cool.
And then you'll get devastating wounds in the finest hour ability with plus extra attacks and now plus damage as well. It's fantastic.
18 Sanguinary Guard is already well. I guess he's not quite the meta, but it's been strong for a while. I would not be too shocked to see it sort of continue.
The one moment you really need to shine, you're like, right, it's your moment. Let's go.
Your Space Marine captain will just go one shot. Oh, sorry, apologies. It's jump hack. Jump hack. So not the finest hour one in the melee, but still pretty very, very, very powerful.
Still great. Cool. There's also a stratagem we're going to talk about, which is blinding.
Chad, they left that in. Well, you know what? I'm glad I'm not the only one. That's so funny. We didn't edit that out. He talks for like a full minute about how good a combo you can't use is. I mean, like, in fairness, I doubt Adam has really seen these rolls before today and didn't really grok that it was jump back only. But, like, you could just pull that out of the video, guys. All right, well, you know what? I'm glad I'm not the only person who fucks up shit sometimes. I'm glad we could be on the Warhammer official channel, and that still happens. But, like, somebody did edit this video, right? They, like, assembled all the camera angles. They put it all together. You could just cut that out, dude. And you could mask it with another camera angle. It's so easy. When you have 3 camera angles, it's so easy to do. That would take someone literally 2 minutes of work. That's fucking hilarious.
And this is for Sanguinary Guard.
Well, there you go, chat.
Yes, so this is another fantastic reactive durability piece, as I mentioned in the previous attachment with the 5 invulnerable save. Stealth on Sanguinary Guard. Well, 5 invulnerable save on Sanguinary Guard, as we said. There's no point. You already have a 4-up. So what do you give them as a reactive strat? You give them stealth. So 1 CP when you target in the shooting phase, just going to be stealth.
Yeah, and this is useful because you have quite small units of them. They tend to kind of jump around, pick on targets of opportunity, quite often find themselves in the middle of nowhere, usually standing over the slain bodies of their foes, but not in cover with lots of guns pointed at them.
This is what you don't want to have happen as a Sanguinary Guard player. As in, you never want your Sanguinary Guard to be traded for 1 unit. As in, here's my 1 unit of Sanguinary Guard. It's quite expensive, quite powerful. I
made
need
of gold.
Exactly right.
Made of
like
gold.
Right, in the lore. Charging in, killing 1 unit, theoretically not a high-priced, high-value unit, and then being shot. So stealth, I think, is very important for them to have.
Help keep them alive.
Yeah.
Then last up, we have the other end of the Blood Angel spectrum. This one is all about Death Company. Wrath of the Doomed is the name of the detachment, and it makes your Death Company even scarier.
They put into
yes,
this. We have to look at
stratagems and various other things.
This gives you advanced charge
wounds, but
for
you are
D3 plus 1 mortal wounds.
to advance and charge. What can be, as in, if you spent a command point and chose to be battle shock to get an ability, well, you may never unbattle shock for the rest of the game now if you continue to fail. And so it's been really interesting to see the design of this change. And yes, you're going to take mortal wounds. You have a feel no pain.
Yeah, that's a good call. They don't want to give you the stratagems that like perma battle shock yourself, because doing that could be a fucking disaster sometimes. And looks like they're gonna.
But generally, you'd rather take a small amount of damage than be battle shocked.
Fix that a little bit.
And never have the chance to use a stratagem. Never have the chance to set.
Yeah, and that kind of leans into what you want the Death Company to do, right? Like, you shouldn't expect them to be alive after turn 2. Their job is to go, right, we're the first wave, we charge in of the Death Company charge.
This feels correct.
Yeah, it does feel right. Called instinctive interception, and they can heroically intervene.
Yeah, we saw all this from the article.
You would launch your Death Company out, advancing and charging as deep into their lines as possible, and then make them scatter, because if anything is there at the end of their charge phase within 6 inches, your Death Company will just go into them for one
Or you just move them up.
Wants to be
charged. You just kill the Death Company.
Maybe another
it's simple. We kill.
Yeah, I suppose
have a great time.
That Death Company unit's not Lamarty's. They're just gonna die.
Yeah, Horus. No.
Death begets vengeance. This basically means one of your sorry, we're going to talk two stratagems.
Yeah.
The first one, Death begets vengeance. When your Death Company unit is destroyed,
the rest
of your army
hits
them harder.
So essentially, when you destroy one of your Death Company units for one command point, you will tag that unit with the hatred keyword. And while a unit is hated by your army-friendly Death Company units, will have +1 to wound against that unit for the rest of the game. So you almost want to take big and small units of Death Company in this detachment and actually go.
That's great. That's sort of an effect in one of the existing detachments, right? So like you can fight on death in Lost Brethren. Meow. This is very cute, chat. Glorious Sacrifice lets you obsec objectives when you die. I think that's maybe what I was thinking of. There's also like the Death Company captain, I think, explodes when he dies and he kills people. So you like throw him in there, and then you just like you get to fight on death, and then he dies, and he deals mortal wounds back to you. Getting a +1 to wound is actually great. Horus, indeed. That's phenomenal. Another thing too is that I think that this potentially has some implication for like standard Death Company, which is a unit that's not very played very often. But you can just take ranged Death Company units. So like, assuming that these guys' profile doesn't change, they get sustained hits 1 and sustained hits 2 based on your strength. Based on the strength of your unit. So, especially with this detachment, you have the ability to automatically inflict damage to yourself with the detachment ability in order to turn on this effect. And then you can shoot at someone and get +1 to wound against them. If they've destroyed like a 5-man JP Death Company squad, like a JPDC squad. Which is kind of interesting, chat. Because that wasn't really like an interaction that we saw previously. It's like Death Company. Is it Death Company? Or maybe they... Oh, yeah, it's Death Company Bolt Rifle Marines is what it is the unit that we wanted to. You can Overwatch for free, these guys. Excuse me. They're not the ones with the rerolls. But you can just take a gun Death Company Marines. And if there's a whole detachment built around your army, or your Death Company like getting wound bonuses against each other, then you might be able to take a ranged version of them, assuming that they improve the output here. Although being like low AP weapons is slightly better in these cases. So that's kind of cool.
There's some killed.
Did they say that it affects your whole army?
Sorry, we're going to do two stratagems.
Yeah.
The first one, Death begets.
Tag that unit with the hatred keyword, and while a unit is hated by your army-friendly Death Company units, will have +1 to wound against that unit for the rest.
Yeah, so you lose a Death Company unit, and then you apply +1 to wound for other Death Company units. So if you have Death Company like gun dudes, you could just shoot them to death. Which is kind of neat. I don't know. I think that's cool. I would love if that was like a play pattern that they incentivized, because I think it's interesting when Death Company units are not strictly like jump pack, intercessors with extra steps, basically. I think it's cool that there may be an incentive to play the
Leans you
more
into
ranged
going
versions.
for some big units. So you
Yes.
probably want to have some big units, as you're saying,
Yeah.
and then maybe some smaller ones, particularly if you've got an eye on that strategy.
Uh-huh.
Full of units in the game that 10 Death Company won't just take care of.
Yes, of course.
Even though you're Death Company, you still, still a starter. You
Still
still got some
thinking,
plans.
yeah.
And then you can crash some units into that, get that +1 to wound going, and you're only going to need it in very specific places, but it's a very good tool to get that unit down. And so this is very cool.
And then last up, we've got another stratagem, which is Rage-Fueled Response, and this is a surge move.
Yes, this one is
that
very
one's-
interesting for
that's
Death
the
Company
one
to have.
that's
And of course,
in the
you
article.
already have the ability with one of the
I'm interested if they
enhancements
talk
to
about
do
what
heroic
surge moves
interventions for less
do.
command points. So this is adding another cog to turn in your opponent's psyche about I have the ability to charge you for cheaper in your turn with the heroic intervention enhancement, and this one it's very straight up and down as a surge move, as people would know as Zig's in the game right now. 1 command point your opponent's shooting phase. When a friendly unit of unengaged Death Company has been shot, your unit can make a surge move of D6. Very nice to have.
Yeah, great little ability. Right, that is the Blood Angels.
We didn't talk
We're
about
gonna
what
start
surge
with
moves
Dark
do, though,
Light
chat.
Pursuit, and that is a
I'll go fuck
detachment
myself.
all about the Raven Wing.
Yes, the first of
Heyo.
the first Space
Let's go.
Marine detachments for the Dark Angels. Had to let that one land. But this is for Ravenwing Fly units. And you will get Ignores cover on all of those. So that is quite a few units, quite more than you think. So, of course, there's the 2 Dark Angel specific speeders, that being the Vengeance and the Dark Shroud, the 2 the aircraft miniatures, but then all the Storm Speeder variants and the new Land Speeder variant that just came out in the box.
So you could do a whole army of those if you wanted to.
You very much could. I very much will.
Obviously, Ignores cover immediately very useful. We've talked already about cover being a more useful mechanic to get your units alive than it was previously. -1 to hit is great. The ability to ignore that is obviously going to be very useful.
Absolutely. Then a lot of the speeders that I mentioned also give impactful bonuses and buffs. If you've watched the start of this recording, you heard us talk about the Fulgaris Task Force, which is for Codex compliant Marines, which is also predicated on buffing your speeder units. Now, I think these two will combo together extremely well if you wanted to make a full all-in on the speeder archetype.
It's interesting that you'd be able to take 2 overlapping effects that affect, or 2 overlapping detachments that affect the same unit. I guess I don't know why it would be the case that you couldn't do that, but it does seem dangerous, I guess, if there is a particular datasheet or unit archetype that's like very strong in the meta or in a particular codex, and you release multiple detachments that works well with it. There is a very dangerous precedent to set where you are able to stack 2 to 3 detachments together on top of that unit that synergize. Because it definitely it seems like the intention of the multi-detachment rules and the way that they've constructed it in a lot of cases are that you are meant to select a broad spectrum of different units that you're able to buff with the detachment selections. However, the ability to choose one unit and then like supercharge them is very spooky. And a lot of the other detachments have restrictive clauses in them that prevent them from being taken in multiples of multiple detachments that would affect the same unit. But it's weird that they would have this one exception where it's like all your speeders get a buff and you can take another detachment that gives all your speeders a different buff. And all your stratagems are also going to affect those speeders. And you're talking about an army that could play, potentially 9, 10, 12 speeders. That gets a little bit spooky.
And I think this is a fantastic point to talk about the new design space for building and list construction, using your detachment points to really build something very interesting you could not do before. Ignores cover is extremely powerful, like I said, and just a brilliant place to be starting from.
Yeah. There's some enhancements and stratagems for this detachment, of course. One of them is an enhancement specifically for the Land Speeder Vengeance. I haven't seen a lot of those on the battlefields recently. Maybe this will change it. This is an upgrade that gives the unit a reroll to the number of attacks the weapon has.
Oh, that's great.
And a reroll to any hazard rolls it.
And I think
Of course,
they've
the
said
Plasma Storm
before,
Battery is
upgrades can
DC+1
affect
blast,
multiple units.
and then having insurance like roll the 1, don't like that, and
yeah. So having like all your vengeances or many of your
you
vengeances
know, they are
buffed with this
light
effect would be
vehicles.
huge.
They don't have a deluge
It's just a
of wounds.
flying massive plasma cannon.
Correct, and so hurting yourself is never a good thing. So anytime you can avoid that, you're going to feel like a winner.
And then the stratagem we're going to look at for these guys is called We Are Vengeance, and this is, again, an out-of-phase move.
Yes, it is. So this is in your opponent's shooting phase when an enemy unit has targeted a friendly unengaged Ravenwing unit that has shot. That Ravenwing flyer unit can then make a normal move of D3+3. So this is really key once again to keep.
So you could potentially have 2 stacked reactive moves across the movement and shooting phases.
Interrogation Conclave, one of the other iconic models within the Dark Angels, of course, the interrogation.
Shit. That's probably fine, honestly. Although Dark Angels do have lots of extra command points because they have Azrael. So like being able to stack stratagems together is very good for them. But like I said, I would be a little bit trepidatious about the precedent setting that is set of having multiple overlapping detachments affect the same unit type. Interesting chat. Like I could see it in the future at some point having like, oh, we released a 2-point detachment that affects whatever Kroot units, and we released another 1-point detachment that affected mounted units only. And you're like, well, now I have 2 separate detachments that affect Kroot riders, right? And it's like, and if the Kroot rider datasheet's good, it immediately breaks wide open. So I don't know. I'm curious about that.
Gator chaplains. We've talked about chaplains a little bit already. Dark Angels have got their own specific flavor. This is quite a different sort of detachment for chaplains, boosts them in some different ways.
Yeah, so the interrogator chaplains key a lot of battle shock interactions. So in the fight phase, when a friendly chaplain unit destroys an enemy unit, all enemy units within 6 of that chaplain unit have to take a battle shock. And then friendly chaplains also have a following ability.
Better this edition than previously, otherwise that would have been a joke.
And we've already mentioned many times in different faction focuses and in this one, how much more impactful battle shock can be to the outcome of a game. Not automatically unbattle shocking. And then this is one of the few abilities that I've seen that creates an AoE effect almost. So an area of effect of a battle shock that can cascade. And if things go wrong, can start costing your opponent significant portions of their scoring.
But you can imagine something like a unit of Blade Guard led by a chaplain right into the heart of the enemy army, kills the thing they're fighting, but usually, even if it's like a light skirmish unit, kill that thing, and then multiple units of the enemy army are battle shock, potentially swinging objectives in your favor.
Yes, so after take that battle shock at -1, then you go straight into their command phase, because you just had your turn, you just killed a unit, so then they take a battle shock immediately, which costs them some of their reactive abilities, can cost them the ability to, essentially, secure objectives and, use offensive or defensive stratagems if they're fighting back against.
An interesting thing I'm curious about, and for a lot of these discussions, is when they're talking about objective, like these pulse effects that affect objectives. I'm interested in how actually broad the spectrum of those effects are going to be, because I do think that there's a potential for a lot of these to not actually be as impactful as you consider, and especially while we're considering heroic intervention, right? In the context of 10th edition, heroic intervention being like projected out to a greater distance is kind of insane. However, one thing we have to keep in mind is that the general size of objectives is going to increase pretty dramatically. Because previously it's a 7.5-inch little bubble, right, that you have to go into. But now we're talking about these like 12 by 12-inch buildings in the center of the battlefield for most of the layouts. And so I think that there's a case where a lot of times you can apply OC characteristics to a unit, but actually be like very far away from that unit. Or apply OC to an objective. Excuse me, Chad. I apologize. Ooh. You can apply your OC to an objective, but be very far away from other enemies that are on the same objective. So, I don't know, chat. Thank you, chat. I appreciate that. Unfamiliar with Battleshock as a new player. What does it do if you fail Battleshock? So in 10th edition 40K, it reduces your OT characteristic to 0, and it prevents you from being targeted by stratagems. It sounds like those effects will remain in 11th edition. However, the difference is that in 10th edition, you automatically unbattle shock at the start of your next command phase. So if you battle shock in your opponent's turn, you only get those effects until the command phase, until their turn ends. And then you go back to your turn, you unbattle shock, and if the unit's damaged, if they're below half strength, then you would test to see if you would battle shock again. But there's like a period where you like unbattle shock and then you're unbattle shocked for a while. In 11th edition, it sounds like even if you are at full strength and something shocks you, you will have to test to unbattle shock. It doesn't happen automatically. So battle shocking opponents during your own turn is valuable, whereas previously all it did was make it like so that you couldn't use stratagems and stuff. Battle shock should also strip you of all your rolls. Adam did mention something about units firing only using snap shooting, but I think that was in reference to previous editions of 40k. I don't think that is how it works in this edition. If that is how it works, I would be a little bit perturbed. If it also give you like -3 to shoot, that would be pretty brutal for sure. Oh yeah, that's a good call out, yeah. It removes your OC characteristic now instead of reducing it to 0. Because previously, if you had any like stacked OC effects, you could actually basically like ignore the OC reduction effect of Battle Shock because you would just add your OC back on by like stacking banner effects and like enhancements and stuff. But now if you're Battle Shocked, you just can't have an OC value, basically, is the difference.
Against you, and then you roll directly into their command phase, and they have to.
That's a good call out,
you
chat.
had a movement phase to move outside of 6 of the chaplain, so they're still at -1 when they take that Battle Shock test.
Yep.
So you're much more likely to keep that cascading Battle Shock active.
Some great enhancements and stratagems as well. You've got one called Inescapable Interrogation.
That's
that allows the
an
chaplain
interesting detachment,
to give
but I'm
ignores
curious to
cover to
see
the ranged
if
attacks
it will
of
actually
its
see
unit.
play.
Now, it's very interesting because chaplains aren't known for going. Usually, you think about them as going with a melee unit. This kind of changes
They
the
do give you
ideology
+1 to
here,
wounded
and
melee.
You're much more likely to want to have an interrogator chaplain attached to a shooting unit. You could put this.
Hellblaster, something like that. Would
Yep,
be great.
Hellblasters, Stern Guard. come
If
to mind
only,
as-
chat, we had some sort of effect by which a chaplain could apply a buff to a ranged attack. If only. Maybe instead of like tying a chaplain's entire effect to a static bonus to the unit, we have like some sort of selectable ability where they can like recite some sort of incantation or something to buff your unit and give them a bonus in range. And then like any ranged buffs onto a chaplain don't feel really stupid. Interesting. But no.
Well, both very good choices, and this is a really interesting way and different way of thinking about a chaplain.
Yeah, and then last up we've got.
Imagine
a
if you
stratagem
had
called
different
Exacting
litanies.
Punishment.
Imagine,
This
chat.
is again for
I can't.
the shooting phase or the fight phase.
And that
Chaplain
couldn't be
unit
me.
Can give precision to the attacks of the
So
unit.
this is quite big because it has the shooting phase in it. So it's actually quite rare to get shooting phase precision. Usually it's on things like your sniper-esque characters.
Tends to be not the most high damage weapons, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Usually it's on one shot, low quantity weapons. The fact that you can attach this to just a unit of intercessors who have a deluge of fire. If you're trying to keep a company commander
deluge
alive,
even.
I'm sorry, 1 CP, that guy is not going to survive. Just 5 intercessors.
But if we
shooting
talk
into that
about
squad.
like the other units we were mentioning before, you could put into the Stern Guard squad and
Yeah, absolutely,
Hellblasters.
absolutely.
A Hellblaster unit with precision where you're like,
Terrifying.
oh, I see you've got a Chaos Lord in that unit.
Yes.
Now you don't have
What
a
if
Chaos
you
Lord
didn't?
anymore.
Yeah, what if you didn't?
What if you didn't? Yeah.
Does your chosen unit still fight and win in combat this turn? If you go into my Inner Circle Companions, my Deathwing Knights, if you do not have that Chaos Lord,
Taking out those kind of
let's
linchpin
find
pieces,
out.
especially
Exactly.
trying to particularly pick out enemy characters is almost always useful, right?
Yeah. Well, in addition, you could just have, like you said, with Blade Guard, who have
Those stratagems are so I don't know, they're very rarely useful, but I assume precision does not change. I don't precision's in an interesting spot where it's like I don't think you can make it more powerful. But at the same time, at the current, like at time recording, right, 10th edition, it's like kind of it's not very powerful, and with the exception of very specific circumstances. But you can't like make it more meaningful without breaking it wide open. So you're like, I guess it's just how it is. And so these like stratagems that give you precision are useful in some cases, but it's like usually not the highlight of a detachment. It's like a thing you'll use every other game or every 3
Specifically
games or
focused on
something.
one aspect of the army. This is a Dark Age arsenal, and it's basically all
Plasma, the plasma detachment. Let's
Finally.
go.
It's time. We're back. So friendly Adept Astartes, Dark Angels. Weapons with profile that has plasma in their name are plasma weapon profiles, and they'll all just get +1 strength. So that's where we're starting. We're starting with every plasma
thing.
just gets +1 strength.
We love that.
Fantastic break.
We love
And
that,
there's
chat.
loads of stuff. Like Hellblasters.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
the plasma guns that you get on vehicles. Redemptor
Redemptor
Dreadnoughts.
Dreadnought.
I've got
Yep.
some.
Yep.
There's plasma
Peter
pistols
Vengeance.
sprinkled around the army. Loads of stuff.
So I'll tell you that a thing happened in the edition we're just leaving where Riptides went from strength 9 to strength 10 on their ion cannon. What if I said a Redemptor gets exactly the same, whereas from strength 9 to strength 10? And with that, strength 9, AP 4, flat 3 damage on that plasma.
It's a really nice break point.
It's
isn't it,
such
for
a
bunch
good
of
break
stuff?
point. And then, of course,
I
you have
don't know if
Vengeance,
those
which
are quite the same, Adam. Let's be real. A Redemptor Dreadnought isn't like a move 10, advance and shoot, lethal hit, devastating wound machine.
Twin linked.
Definitely
also going
good,
to
though.
strength 10. That is amazing. I think this is just a fantastic place to start. And it's units, you're playing Dark Angels. You already want to take plasma.
Some other
it's a
great
good like
things,
first
thrown into the
order
mix as well.
sort of
Some enhancements and some-
detachment. Like it just gives you like such a passive nice buff. You know, like, oh, I could just be higher strength. I can, my plasma starts to like convert into light vehicles much more consistently and stuff. Pretty cool. I don't know.
stratagems. The enhancement we're going to talk about is called Petition of Stability. This is on an Adeptus Astartes units with plasma, and their plasma weapons have +6 range.
Yes, this is a bit of a game changer to really project and be able to attack into your opponent. Especially, I like this, especially on the Vengeances, which you can get a lot closer to your opponent and get the angles to see into their backfield.
I was always thinking you could use this on like a Hellblaster squad, and start to use them more like a traditional like Devastator style.
Correct.
You can park them quite far back in your army and still project fire.
You go to
So where it's
30-inch
going to be
range.
interesting is that if you took
You don't
this,
require
I
rapid
would
fire,
want to stack
which is,
things in
kind of
my
important.
army that assist with my detection range, and so that the +6 inches comes up more, and I can keep my Hellblasters further and further and further back.
So you maybe combine this with some of the Phobos stuff
Yes,
we talked about
dude.
earlier on.
Yeah, absolutely right. And then all of a sudden, you're shooting from that further away. You're much less likely to be charged. And
well, that's interesting. That certainly seems to imply that the plasma detachment is a 1 or 2 points detachment, which would frighten me. I was sort of under the impression that it would be, I guess like 2 points makes sense, but being able to stack that alongside a buff 2 units that have plasma. So, for example, if you have it with the Ravenwing thing that gives all of your Ravenwing things ignore cover, there's a potential that could work on the Ravenwing detachment that they talked about explicitly works only on flying units, so it doesn't give any buffs to the bikers. But there's a potential that there is a detachment that buffs the bikers, so you could have buffed +1 strength Ravenwing Black Knights, which would be very powerful. Or you could have +1 strength Landspeeder Vengeances, which is also potentially very powerful. Which is curious. I would have expected to be an exclusive detachment with a lot of powerful army-wide effects, but it seems like it is going to be cheaper than that. Interesting.
Just in case the plasma wasn't already deadly enough, there are some abilities.
Also, I wanted to say too, he was talking about I want to extend detection range so that my 30-inch range plasma guns can shoot farther. And I'm like, how does that work? I don't understand. Is it possible to stack detection range to the point that you can fire from greater than 21 inches or 24 inches? That feels unlikely. But if so, the hidden mechanic's not going to be very powerful. If it's I can still shoot that unit, it just requires me to jump through one hoop. Okay. It's a weird statement. I assume based on what I assume is right about the detection range mechanic, where it prevents you from being targeted by attacks, or makes you invisible from units that are far enough away outside of your detection range, it would be very difficult to buff it to the point that a range 30 matters. But I have no idea if that's the case. Maybe it is.
That you can put onto your units through stratagems. One of them is called No Sacrifice Too Great, and that is a stratagem for 1 CP where if your unit has plasma hazardous shooting, which is most of the plasma shooting, those attacks have a further +1 strength.
This is pretty wild, to be honest. So the unit that we haven't mentioned yet that has the plasmas is, of course, the Black Knights. And the Black Knights get so much out of this, it is crazy. Where they go to 3 shots within close range, so they don't need the +6 inch range as much. They got a much more robust movement.
Characteristic.
12, so they're a lot speedier, a lot faster. Movement characteristic is what I was going for. And getting +1 strength and then another +1 strength. Strength 11 on some of those profiles. It's such a strong breakpoint to hit because of where Greater Demons reside.
Importantly,
and where Imperial Knights, Chaos
the Black Knights will most likely sit at 10, right? Because at the time of recording, they are strength 8, and I would be surprised if we saw Plasma go to base strength 9. And then the stratagem is +1, right? It's not +2. Am I stupid? Yeah. So I think the Black Knights hits up. That sounded. I think he was talking about Black Knights, and then he was like, some of these profiles go to strength 11, but the Black Knights, I think, unless this number changes in the new supplement, which it could, who knows, but I think the Black Knights will most likely sit at 10 after all these buffs are applied, which is still very good, right? You start to kill T8 vehicles or T9 vehicles on 3s, which means like or T10 vehicles even, like a Black Knight squad, especially if you apply some buffs to it, Oath of Moment or whatever, ignore cover, or some other effect that you can get from maybe a Ravenwing focused attachment. A Black Knight squad going to strength 10 is kind of nuts. You start to kill like medium tanks, right? Sort of T10 tanks like very consistently. It's just so much attack. There's so many attacks. The full brick shoots 27 times at strength 10, which could go insane. He talked about the profile going to strength 11, but that affects other things. That affects like the Redemptor Dreadnought goes to strength 11 if you apply all those buffs together.
Because this is a stratagem, you've already got +1 for the army. Yep. You can go, how much do I need that extra strength?
This is 1 CP +1 to wound. That's what it is, because you're not going to use it unless it hits your breakpoint.
Yeah. I was thinking Inceptors is another very scary unit, right?
Absolutely.
Like dropping in, and all of a sudden they can start punching into things like knights and all sorts of things.
How did I didn't even think of Inceptors. I thought of them the first time I read through it, but yeah, wow, on Inceptors, this is a game changer. We have one more to talk about, which is Searing.
Are these changing, chat? They talked. They did just say that they're gonna get a bonus against knights. Maybe all the plasma goes to base strength 9, or a supercharged strength 9. But otherwise, this guy goes to 10, which is like good into armatures, I guess, but not any of the bigger stuff. That certainly seems to imply that these weapons are getting a strength bonus, in addition to what they would get from the detachment ability. Maybe we're reading too far into it, because like it could just be a misremembering, or they're referring to the lighter knights. What is a Destrier at? Are they T10? Oh, fuck me, I guess. They are T10, so you get +1 to wound against a Destrier if you stack all those buffs together. But also I think it's like, it is certainly different than getting like a raw +1 to wound, of course, because it's a situational +1 to wound, so it's not as powerful in the pregame step, right? Like when you're building your list, a +1 to wound that is contextual is not as powerful as just having a +1 to wound.
So Searing Burst, this is an ability for a Hellblaster squad. We've talked about Hellblasters already. I think if you're taking Dark-Age Arsenal as your detachment, or one of your detachments, you're almost certainly having a Hellblaster squad. This effectively is an ability where if you shot a Hellblaster squad into an enemy unit,
I would be shocked if
that
Melta
enemy
gets a
unit
strength buff.
slows down.
Yes, you will give them -2 move for 1 command point. So not only are you projecting so much damage into units you want to kill, you can split off 1 model and then potentially debuff the unit you don't have an allocation for. Like you've gone through you've gone through your phase, your shooting phase. Okay, this unit has to shoot here, take care of this, handle this one. This one might get through. I'm not sure I have the damage to get this one. I have to wait and see. And then you get to that activation and you're like, yeah, I'm 1 short on taking care of that unit of Orc knobs, unit of Orc boys that's going to crash into me. Just need to give myself a chance to not make it, and bang, I'm going to do this. One thing we also didn't mention is Azrael as well.
That's Hellblasters explicitly?
He's, in my opinion...
Is that what they said? Because that one wasn't in the article.
Yeah, take care of this.
Taking Dark-Age Arsenal...
Wow, on Inceptors, this is a game changer. We have one more to talk about, which is Searing Bursts.
So Searing Burst, this is an ability for a Hellblaster squad. We've talked about Hellblasters already. I think if you're taking Dark-Age Arsenal...
Yeah. So Hellblasters explicitly.
And then potentially debuff the unit.
It's actually kind of cool, because one thing that oftentimes happens in some of these attachments, assuming that Hellblasters retain the ability to fire on death, is that a lot of times what you play is you end up starting to play 5-man units more often. So you play like 1 10-man with Azrael, like probably has this range buff and like stacks a bunch of shit. And then you take like 2 units of 5s in impulsors. And so you can like do some funny stuff where you can like, you can fire them at long range from the impulsors early, and then you can run up and disembark and shoot and kill yourself and shoot again. And then your opponent shoots you back and then you shoot a 3rd time and you get a lot of work done. And being able to split off attacks from those guys individually and debuff enemy melee units actually like gives them a ton of utility, especially like I was talking about with the objectives being physically larger in a lot of cases, especially the No Man's Land ones than we have currently. Being able, even if your opponent's on an objective, being on the opposite end of the objective terrain feature and shooting them and slowing them can sometimes mean they fail to charge if you're going like from corner to corner on the terrain feature, which could be huge.
You don't have an allocation for, like you've gone through your, you've gone through your phase, your shooting phase. Okay, this unit has to shoot
all
here.
of the discussion.
Unit of Orc boys, it's going to crash. with the
-2 move. One of them manages to get through. You slow it down, and thank you so much. That was our bumper extra length Space Marine faction
Extra
focus.
length.
We will
Let's
be back
go.
very soon with even more armies from the 41st millennium.
Cool, chat. Well, I'm glad we watched that. There was some interesting stuff to discuss in there. I'm excited to see what they have for future factions. I hope that we do get. It sounds a lot like obviously the Space Marines are getting like a big release at the start of the edition because they always do. That's just how we roll with Space Marines. But it sounds like a lot of factions are going to be getting these sort of like index style releases where they get a bunch of new content using the newer detachment system. And yeah, I don't know. I think that's fun. That's neat and fun, and hopefully we get some good stuff. So anyway, thanks for making me watch that. Do Tyranids have a crumb of hope? Well, the new battle shock mechanics are certainly good for Tyranids. I would say that the new cover mechanics are probably good for Tyranids because AP was not ideal for them. So we'll see. I don't know. The new Red Terror profile is great if it doesn't get changed. So, I'm like cautiously optimistic about Tyranids. They definitely fucking suck right now, but maybe that changes in the future. I kind of do want to play a Red Terror game sometime this week using the new profile. I think that'd be fun. But anyway, chat, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. I should be live tomorrow. I don't know what we're talking about, but I'll likely be live talking about some, I imagine, new stuff that comes out. So with that, I'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thanks, everyone, for watching. There's a strong likelihood that I'm live on Twitch later this evening as well. So hopefully I'll see you over there. But otherwise, I'm going to take a little easy today. I hope I'm not con cruddy from Richmond Open, but I did just spend basically 2 straight weeks traveling for event coverage between ATC North Carolina and Richmond. And I did a video edit in between that. My last 2 weeks have been like basically just like 18-hour days straight back to back. So I'm fucking exhausted. I'm gonna take a little bit of a break here, chat, and I'll be back with you tomorrow. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me, and I will see you later. Cheers, everybody.